The Uber Empire is at its peak if Melaner illuminates the world with his light. Fried will always create shade to take a break from the hot sun. Two families created the world today. They imagine people who have concentrated power in their hands. The girl is looking at the book. Her name is Dorothea Melaner, who is the princess of the empire in which she lives. Ray's nasty voice is heard calling the beauty. She turns away, asking to be left alone. The boy always follows on your heels and constantly bothers you. Unfortunately, it is not clear what to do with him. Raymond is the crown prince of the Uber Empire and therefore Dorothy's older brother. The man once died at the hands of his sister, but now that is in the past. In his new life, the tyrant promises himself to be good. There is good and evil in the past. The lady was just evil. She killed the heir, usurped power, and got rid of those who opposed her. In the end, the lady destroyed everything herself. The man she loved chose his death. The people to whom the heroine gave power with her help overthrew the empress. Realizing that she was about to be executed, the lady decided that she deserved it and accepted death with dignity. Dorothea was born again and was given a lesson in the worthy life that she would endure. The birth of the girl foreshadowed many misfortunes that happened in the past. The promise was made not to kill Ray under any circumstances, but now he pesters his sister again, asking about books. While ordering her brother to back off, the lady thinks that he too should learn the history of Uber, at least for the sake of decency. There is literally a flower garden in the boy's head because he has more than the princess, all because of the title. Blue-Eyed asks to go play, and when he refuses again, the maid asks why she should interrupt the lady's activities. The nanny asks if her charge knew that the Stone of Light was lost, and she nods in response. The girl remembers the entire Melaner family tree, although she should have pretended that nothing was clear. The woman suggests that the king should know about something like this, but the little girl sharply refuses. For the heroine, the very word father sounded strange and incomprehensible. Blood relationship meant nothing. Alice, the mother and empress, died shortly after the birth of her daughter, and Kernan was indifferent to the child. Dorothy used to try to prove herself to get at least a drop of love, and tried to become better than Ray. The girl was not noticed until the very end, but with the prince it was different because without doing anything he received gifts and all the attention. The young man was allowed to laugh, asking many questions. For some reason they cared about him more. It seemed that the reason was that the princess was unwanted, and the hatred towards his brother grew with each passing day. The boy was tortured as much as possible to take away what he had. The result was not positive. The further the more the relationship with Kernan resembled a vicious circle. The girl longed for love, but her life was as far from it as a person is from the moon in the sky. Anger and indignation gave birth to the seeds of evil in the soul. Feelings trampled everyone around, leaving Melaner herself with nothing. There is no point in thinking about the past anymore. I had to understand that shifting my blame onto others is a pointless exercise. It seemed that it was the heroine's fault that she was unloved, but she realized that this was not true. The nanny suggested going for a walk somewhere else. Their route is too trivial, it needs to be changed. In the distance, you can see Alice's homeland, or rather the garden that was built for the empress who was bored outside the city. In her past life, the girl often visited these places, but now there is only a strange feeling inside. Of course, the emperor found himself in this garden, asking who dared to enter the secret place. The nanny moves the blonde forward, saying that this is Princess Dorothea Melaner herself. The first thing the blue-eyed man noticed was that his daughter didn't know how to greet anyone. In other words, she was completely uneducated. The heroine doesn't have parents who could teach her, but of course the fault still isn't her father's. The brunette tries to protect her mistress in any way possible, saying that she is actually a capable girl. Having decided to do something, the lady introduces herself correctly, answering the question about her age. Of course, the nanny is exaggerating because there is nothing special about the baby. The princess is modest, but in fact she knows the entire Melaner family tree. Since this is an imperial family, there is a rule that says that everything must be known. Kernan himself probably learned it too. It is the father who is trying to test his daughter. She does not understand what good she will get from reading some book. The girl is trying to save His Majesty's time. He hasn't had time to come and see her since her birthday. Studying the tree just for the king's interest is not an idea. The blue-eyed one hopes that not a drop of time will be spent on it. If so, Dorothea can say what she needs. Words are paralyzing. Kernan never behaved like that. The blonde is not the same Millener that she was in her past life. If she hadn't changed, she would be jumping for joy. It won't be possible to remain silent, so the lady asks to make a premium wine and name it after her. Questions for the nanny. She might not have been involved in teaching because at that age she shouldn't be talking about such things. Virgo assures that she herself read about wine in a book where they discussed its excellent taste and color. The child read Portrait of Babelois. The man agreed to create the drink. Dorothea is obliged to tell the whole tree, but if she makes a mistake even once, her maid will immediately be punished. Perhaps it was her father who showed her how to be a tyrant, but it doesn't matter. The heroine collects her thoughts. The nanny needs to be saved. She always wanted only the best. The girl tried to attract Kernan's attention to his daughter. Every time the woman tried to support the mistress when the man did not show up, for which she was grateful. When Millener sees the king, he does not feel very well. To live a good life, one must avoid those factors that do not darken it. In the old days, a lady would go out of her way to show off her best self, which was very stupid. To be good means to do nothing. When a person tries to do something, he will be hated. Raymond was distracted by the voice the lady asks to say that she is not there and tries to run away. The boy was about to show how to handle the spirit of light. His smile makes you think that it was all to make fun of him. The power of Millener to raise the sun has long since weakened, but there remains a small stream that does not go anywhere. The princess is the one who is unable to control energy, and this is another reason why she did not fit into the family. The spirit of light is a big deal, and it was this story that led to a small success, the appearance of fireflies. The heroine took the throne with the help of a sword, and having ascended it, announced the end of the magical era. Perhaps the spirit really determines the readiness of the heir to rule the empire. Dorothea had a bad end. Now it doesn't matter what the maiden received for her actions. She hopes that she will improve. Ray wanted to introduce his sister to a friend, but of course, this is a bad idea. The beauty will leave them alone. Blue-Eyed realized that if she went the other way, she would definitely not catch anyone's eye. Turning the corner, the lady collides with someone and falls, raising her eyes. She freezes. Fate has thrown her another gift. The man whom the heroine loved in her past life, and whose greed destroyed her, stands before her. Not once since my return have I been able to forget about Theon, the one who is now offering his hand to the princess. The guy asks for forgiveness because it was because of him that the royal person's clothes got dirty on the ground. Asking what hurts, the young man received a very terrible reaction. The girl begins to cry. She missed Theon very much. The brunette doesn't understand where anyone knows him from and why the lady is crying. He holds out a handkerchief, asking her to calm down. The one who left the woman out of resentment is now nearby and alive. All this certainly does not seem like some kind of dream. The maiden hopes that she has fulfilled her life's duty since the Duke is alive, but the moment is interrupted by Raymond, who runs forward. The blonde doesn't listen and immediately attacks his friend, asking if he made Dorothy cry like that. The young man himself does not understand, but they shout at him that he is a bad friend because the girl has never cried like that. The girl runs forward, asking him to stop because she was crying for a completely different reason. It was never possible to imagine the moment when the heroine is grateful for her brother's stupidity. He literally saved her life. The knee is fine. The girl was crying because of a speck of dirt and is now completely fine, so there is no need to worry. Theon can't believe that the princess covered for him, but he still doesn't understand the reason for the tears. They definitely haven't met before. The prince apologizes. The situation was misunderstood, and because of that, everything went completely wrong. The brunette waves his hand. His conclusion made an hour ago was right because he really did behave ignorantly. The boy introduces his friend. The girl almost misses Theon, trying to avoid conversation. Fried kisses the hand. This is their new beginning. The story is not yet written. The boy is better off forgetting about the one who cruelly craves love. The girl hopes that if she has more joy, they will leave her nearby. She already opened her mouth to say something, but then she heard a familiar voice. Of course, Julia de Lavigne, Theon's first and last known lover, stopped by nearby. Theon was forced to marry Dorothea because of her stubbornness, but until the end, he loved only Julia. The two had a special relationship since childhood, but Millener didn't have time to put the pieces of the puzzle together. The girl was hungry for love, and she met a terrible fate. Fried was faithful to his beloved even after the wedding. They secretly exchanged dozens of letters. The lady was constantly waiting for the young man to finally fall in love with her, but in the end, she got nothing. Delavigne simply could not disappear. The empress constantly prayed for the death of the maiden who was an eyesore to her, and her wishes materialized. When the queen's loyal servant committed murder, she was overjoyed thinking that Theon would finally be hers alone. The young man chose death and left this world. Dorothea's selfishness destroyed him. She no longer had to desire his love. The girl understands that her heart will be broken again. She stands and watches as the trio discusses something. In real life, Julia and Theon are back together. It's just a shame. The princess's expression probably shows pain. Dorothy says she's going to her room. She has something to do. She won't play with those who are left. Memories from the past are increasingly suffocating. The queen killed her brother, forced her lover to choose death, and ended with Delavigne. Lying in bed, the lady brushes off the nanny. She refused to play with her friends, saying that she was simply very tired. Since early morning, the young man has been running from side to side. He is nervous because today he will be declared the heir to the empire. Crown Prince is a really important title, so Dorothy exhales and says nothing more. The boy tries to do something with his face to look more confident. He would like his sister to become the heir instead of him. Dorothea would have gone through the whole ceremony without fear, and on the whole it can be said that she is smarter and more beautiful than her brother. The guy is sure that the lady would be a good empress, but she has no connection with the spirit. It's time to come down to earth. Hope dies last. There is a chance that the lady will still manage to perform a miracle. It's good to live in ignorance, but what the princess knows literally poisons her life. It's difficult. Suddenly the brother starts asking to say something encouraging. If he is supported, it will become much easier to breathe. The sealing ceremony was an event to appoint an official successor to the Ubera Empire. If you think about it, the lady hadn't noticed before, but the setting was quite modest with the empress. Everything was different, or maybe she was special. The girl is lost in thought until His Majesty the Emperor enters the hall. The gaze turns to the scepter in the hands of the king, where originally the stone of light was supposed to be inserted. It seems that the jewel was found shortly before Ubera's execution, but she can't remember all the details. Melena's light is special in any case. It doesn't concern the heroine. She is not one of those who possess it. The ceremony begins. The prince himself comes forward. Dorothy would like him not to make a single mistake. Noticing the princess, the boy starts to smile again. He looks stupid and does not follow the rules. The next emperor will be a fool. The girl knows she would have behaved differently. The thoughts are too intrusive. I need to get rid of them. Somehow there is hope that the person who ascends the throne this time will write a new history. The emperor announces the fact that the ceremony has been shortened so that everyone will live better. The Melener surname is like a curse for the beauty. She doesn't know how to react after everything that happened. Many of the guests noticed that the princess was increasingly beginning to resemble the late empress in her youth. His Majesty never reacted well to such things. Even now he asks everyone to shut up, forcing them to apologize. Despite her father's refusal, the girl could not leave. She knew that everyone knew that Kernan and Ray were the main characters. If this were the old Dorothea, she would have come into society to show herself in all her glory, but no. The girl wants everything to end as soon as possible. This option suits her the most. It's impossible to solve the problem just because Raymond is nearby. If the boy wants to help so much, he should have let him sit down. A familiar voice is heard. Theon comes closer, and it seems that Julia is not nearby. The guy seemed to be watching the lady. He holds out a drink. The scarlet color makes it clear that it is most likely juice. His Highness talked a lot about the princess, and each time the young man spoke about how smart and wonderful she was. If the heroine can even list everyone from the Melener tree, they will surely meet in episteme. The academy is attended by the best people from all over the world. It is a place where children of great families meet and make future connections. Even though the prince had easily entered episteme, the princess was not to outshine him. The road to school was closed to Dorothy, and one day, in protest, she ran away from the palace to throw a stone at the window. As punishment, the father locked his daughter in her room, and since then, the relationship with the man literally died. This time, mistakes cannot be repeated. Enough time has passed since the past ended. Theon is quite smart, so he didn't say anything further. The guy probably understands everything. The girl feels that she needs to change the subject, and with her mouth already open, the lady freezes because she hears Julia's voice. Delavigne conveyed the prince's request, so it was time for the brunette to leave. She came to take him with her. Since everything is over, the girl hopes to go to the room. She goes to the ruler of Ubera to ask permission. The blonde turned around and accidentally touched the glass. The juice spilled on his clothes. The man apologized, explaining to His Highness what happened. Father, of course, orders Dorothea to apologize, something she must do as soon as possible. The maiden bows down, asking forgiveness from Bronte. The Duke is a more important guest than the inconspicuous princess. It's too hard to apologize even if Kernan has forced the lady to do so in the past. Calling the servant, the young man orders him to take his daughter to her room. Her clothes are still ruined. Now you can leave this place behind you, Stan de Livington freed. The couple saw the pitiful friend bowing her head before the Duke. All a beauty wants is to not be looked at like that. She wants the best. The glass of juice was filled with love, but spilled out a feeling that defiled Dorothea again. The king's terrible treatment is par for the course. It is not the first time he has forced people to apologize in such a terrible way. Theon's gaze shattered the lady, leaving not a single piece ironic because the man never loved the princess. There is a knock on the door. Raymond is there. He will not go to the others. He will be there and will not leave her alone. This is not a case where you can come because you are bored. The heir is obliged to behave as expected. The princess grabs her brother by the shirt, continuing to scream. Of course, at that very moment, Theon and Julia arrived. They were all going to play together, but now everything is destroyed. Closing the door, the heroine falls to the floor. The blonde hated herself very much. She looked unloved, just as pathetic, completely unhappy. From that very day on, the heroine did not get out of bed. The girl had a high temperature, and her whole body ached. A few days later, Ray still hasn't come to visit his sister. He probably hates her because of that outburst of anger. The door opens. This time the guy has arrived. Of course, he is holding a gift in his hands, which he should like. A basket of tomatoes is shown in his hands. The boy grew them himself. It is hard to believe that a prince accepted into epistemy wastes his time on useless things that will not help him in any way. The blonde tries to justify himself. He studied and only in his free time did whatever he wanted. Unlike the princess, the young man always got everything he wanted and spent his time playing games. Blue Eyes hopes that his sister is not angry last time she didn't get the idea. Virgo calmly states the fact that gardening will not make her brother an emperor. It's that simple. Still, the heroine wants him to have a good life. She can't change anything, but she can wish for more. The boy smiles. He will study hard in episteme and become the best student, showing himself as the pride of the family. Perhaps the girl will at least go outside sometimes, because it is probably stuffy for her to be inside the castle. The heroine had never been anywhere she had not gotten to episteme and was so tired that nothing was interesting. Raymond still can't calm down. Last time he got to the market, where there are many incredible things. Dorothy can go with her brother to examine everything in detail, but again she is refused. It seemed that the young man would calm down, but this was not true. The boy followed his sister everywhere, continuing to beg her to go with him. It is impossible to bear, so the girl agrees Milliner will go alone, and the prince is obliged to take a nanny or guards. The maid made sure that the lady was in a beautiful outfit, which was absolutely necessary to choose. Finally, the day came when the dress would see the light of day. The woman had been waiting for this moment her whole life. The duo found themselves at a fair. The brunette asks to take her hand so as not to accidentally get lost in the crowd. In her past life, the lady had never walked around with anyone like this, and she admits to herself that she felt terribly awkward. The lady looks around. The present feels different. All she remembers is the smell of blood in the cities that suffered from the war. An empire without a tyrant looks wonderful. Somewhere in the distance, there are even musicians playing. The song is wonderful. The blonde never even thought about enjoying the world. There was too much in her head. The girl lies on the floor with her hands tied. She herself does not understand how it happened that she was kidnapped right in the crowd. After returning, the sword was never drawn, but this time it could come in handy. 3 days earlier, the nanny had been dragging the princess to all the interesting places, showing her all sorts of dresses and books. While they were on the alley, they could buy all the publications that interested the young lady. The nanny hoped to see a happy smile. She did not notice how someone appeared behind her. The man hit her on the head and took the princess away. Dorothea doesn't care how early she dies, but she certainly doesn't want to die at the hands of some freaks. The maid was sent for the money a few days ago, but it seems it will take longer. Everything should work out well, but Kernan might abandon his daughter at this point. He would rather leave an unnecessary pawn behind than sacrifice money. The man hears the baby moving and removes the bandage she decided to play nice to gain trust. Melaner suggests that the young man is her new nanny, or perhaps a friend of His Majesty the Emperor. Tutu turns away to say something to his companion. The girl looks like a beautiful doll. She is incredibly beautiful. There was a man who told the Empress to smile as much as possible. She remembers it very well. Blue Eyes doesn't like the way she looks, but her face isn't so bad that it's disgusting. The girl asks about the scar on her face and then listens to a boring story for about 5 minutes. The man must be a novel writer. Thanks to the kidnapper, it became possible to look around, and the situation turned out to be not so terrible. The girl is very hungry. She looks at the dinner on the table. The two enjoy the delicacies, anticipating how much money they will get after this, even if it is disgusting. It does not matter anymore. While they are arguing about something, the lady sits down at the table. There has been no food in her body for 3 days, but it feels like there is much more. Danny takes out a knife and speaks about his true intentions. When he sees rich kids, he can't hold back. The man clearly treats others as a burden. The brunette steps aside and is afraid of something. A scorpion crawled out from under the table, and the kidnappers immediately began to scream, creating even more noise on their heads. Dorothea suggests catching the animal just to be fed. She will need 2 sticks. A second later, the lady was already holding the baby by the tail with chopsticks, while behind her they were ordering her to kill him. Her hands are weak from hunger. Nothing will work. Tutu promises that they will feed her as soon as she throws him out the door. The blonde heads up to send the animal into the sands. It's very dark on the stairs. It seems like they're underground. It is clear why the lady was not found. There is only an endless desert around in which no matter where you go, you don't know where you will end up. There is simply nowhere to run. The promise was kept, and here the lady sits eating, and another quarrel occurs between Danny and Tutu. They are talking about someone, but the person must keep everything a secret from the imperial family. If they want to live, they will never be sent back. As expected, there was no point in waiting for Kernan, so I had to find some blade in the cabinet and wait at the door. Voices are heard discussing how to kill a person. The girl has long understood that her fate was predetermined. There was no choice left. The blonde has no choice but to grab the knife. She attacks from behind as soon as Tutu enters the room. There is little chance against them. She only manages to land 1 blow as they grab her by the neck and press her against the wall. I don't have enough strength to attack even after a good meal. I would like to become stronger, that's all. They wanted to let the princess leave gracefully. It's better not to twitch. Otherwise, there will only be unnecessary problems. The thoughts in my head again are that nothing can be done in this life. The princess has not been able to receive attention or even love. The girl throws the man back, gathering her last strength, and is about to kill him. He looks, and here again is that look, as if there is a monster in front of him. This happened every time in a past life. I want the heroine to be left alone. She wants to live a good life without killing anyone. Having managed to get outside, the lady moves forward, trying not to succumb to the cold gusts of air. If the lady could control the spirit of light, it would certainly be easier for her. She can't stop thinking about it. For some reason, it seems that if it were Princess Raymond, the Emperor would have found him much faster. He wouldn't even have hesitated. The strength was completely gone and the body fell on the sand. It was unfair that I would have to die alone. In the distance, a light can be seen, and the sound of horses' hooves can be heard. Nothing is over. God has brought the lady back to life again. Even after so many murders in her past life, the heroine still wants to live. Whether there are Kernan's people or bandits again, it doesn't matter anymore. The princess thought about how she wanted love, and at that moment she lost consciousness. Opening her eyes, she realized that she had returned back. Kernan's voice is heard from behind the door, asking for the names of the kidnappers. It seems that only Dorothea was kidnapped. Be that as it may, he is the girl's biological father. He is probably worried. The illusion is shattered by words that hurt to the very soul. Before it seemed that the lady was hated because of her greed, because she fought with Raymond, but now she sees that this is not true. Being punished for something that was done in the past has already happened. There is no point in thinking about it because that is how it is. The doctor visited the princess to check that her body temperature had returned to normal, and it seems that she will soon recover. Diva says that she is fine. She realizes that she never saw the nanny again. She was fired. The woman was not to blame. She did not deserve the bad treatment she eventually received from others. The doctor believes that rest in a quieter place is needed, although leaving the palace is prohibited. There is a place in another city that is suitable for recovery. The girl will be able to get out and be away from her family. In the distance, the lady will be able to gather strength so that no one will dare to offend her again. If she is stronger, there is hope. The blonde assures that she wants to go, and by distributing her forces correctly, she will be able to help other people. Life should be good, you have to take care of yourself, but this is not the first time. The door opens, and of course the prince appears with a bouquet of flowers. The boy is informed about the health palace. He thought that his sister was better and did not need to go anywhere. Ray better leave the estate. He is not guilty of anything, so there is no point in coming every day. The young man still blames himself. If he hadn't asked Dorothy to go for a walk, she would have been completely safe. If the future empress leaves, the prince will be left completely alone, and he does not want that. The last option left is to enter epidemic. He is not impressed by the words, even about the fact that the lady will not be able to. The guy says this because he doesn't know how hard the princess studied in the past to get to that place until Kernan forbade it. The baby still won't understand that disappointment. He always had the best of everything. The heroine has already decided that she will go for treatment. The maid says that His Highness is very worried. It would be worth showing a little sympathy. The girl knows that she has always been bad when compared to Ray, so she decided to leave as quickly as possible. The princess is glad that her brother was not allowed to go with her, and near the carriage she meets Theon, who knows about the rest home. In fact, the brunette came to give something important and is extremely glad that he was not late in the end. The boy hands over some candy, thinking that his girlfriend might get sick on the road. It remains to thank him for his concern. The young man is sad. He can't believe that Dorothea is leaving so far away so unexpectedly. The girl must improve her health and return very soon. They will be able to spend more time together. Theon said things that made the heart tremble. Do not succumb to the charms. Everything will end as usual. Dorothy said goodbye and quickly ran to the carriage, where a smile immediately appeared on her face. It was still nice that Theon thought of Melaner. The new place feels better than the palace where Theon and Ray died, a place where there are only bad memories. The girl was looking at the candies when Clara, the maid here, ran up to her. The lady probably thought she was sent to court someone special. Her interest was fleeting. The girl wants to introduce someone, and a man named Stefan Greenwall steps forward. In his past life, the young man became the most important person in the Order of Light, but soon after he died, without even regretting it. The hero is now about 18 years old. He has just entered the service of the Order and has not yet declared his existence. Surely he has some hope of getting a higher rank thanks to the Princess of Ubera. The brunette hears the greeting but remains silent, and after Clara's words he claps as if giving a high five instead of shaking hands. Just like the last time we met, if you continue to live with the promise of being good, nothing will come of it. The maid brought the princess something to eat and was asked point-blank how to live a decent life. The first thing to do is to be nice to your parents, but this point cannot be included in the plan drawn up by the heroine. Noticing the piece of paper, the girl laughs. In her head, her charge is too cute to be good. There is no need to explain the real plans. Clara suggests inscribing a massage to her father, but after that, the blonde's face changes into anger. If the first option is not the best, you will have to smile 10 times a day. They say that if you do this, luck will be with you from the very beginning. When you imagine a good person, you will definitely see a smile on his face, but the lady herself has no reason to. The words make sense. Attempts to smile don't end well. My lips twitch every time. Pushing the knight and the maid out the door, the girl asks to leave her alone, at least for a little while. The heroine shouldn't want anything that's not hers. The throne belongs to Ray and Theon belongs to Julia. It would also be nice to save people. In her past life, the empress was responsible for the deaths of many people. They had terrible working conditions and no money for food. People who might have survived if Raymond had become emperor died because of the princess. For a successful life, sacrifices and a few more points will be enough, so nothing will happen. Blue-Eyed said that she wanted to go to the beach and did not expect Stefan to be there. He does not interfere in any way and does not even speak first. There is a sense of calm until the lady notices someone in the distance sitting on the sand near the water. That child is Ethan Bronte, or rather the Empress's closest neighbor. He is the most beautiful, but also the most dangerous. The man was nicknamed the Angel, with golden eyes for his equal attitude towards everyone around him. Everyone dreamed of being close to Ethan, but his loyalty was directed only to Melaner. He gave the lady what she wanted and helped get rid of the prince. On Dorothea's orders, the young man killed those who stood in her way, being the only one who listened and understood her heart. The girl thought she had received a loyal servant, but from time to time the blonde would throw tantrums about Theon. Only in the end did it become clear that the choice was wrong, because while Dorothea was on the chopping block, her husband was acquitted. Despite his snake-like tongue, the man was acquitted, believing that he was trying to protect people from a tyrant. If the blonde died, Ethan would become the next ruler in this life. It is better to avoid him, leaving him aside. Thoughts became confused as soon as the lady noticed Bronte's tears. He was not so similar to his past self. There is still a chance that the guy will not take the path of evil, and the girl has hope of living a new good life together. The greeting made the boy scared. He jumps up and runs away. Perhaps he should have been allowed to cry alone. Ethan is known to be the son of the Duke of Bronte, who was already seen at the event. The man cheated on his wife and brought a boy into the house. He could not enter epidemic and appear in society until he grew up. Since the young man was an illegitimate child, they tried to hide him from prying eyes. As soon as the news spread that the princess had arrived, the ladies in her circle showered her with letters asking for a visit. The original plan was to just greet everyone and leave, but it seems things didn't go quite as planned. The ladies surrounded the girl, and each one tried to compliment her or give her some delicious dessert. The heroine was treated like a child, and people admired her cute face and even the way she eats. There was a strong feeling that there were 100 Raymonds around, constantly shouting in your ear and asking you to do something. Everyone was smiling, trying to say something nice, but they themselves didn't realize how much they were irritating Dorothea. One of the ladies tried to keep her distance, but was the first to invite the princess to visit her. Of course it was Bronte. Ethan should be there, his tears are still in her head. The girl can't help but worry. Smiling, the blonde happily accepts the offer. She will have time to find out all the details. We need to add a new life for Ethan to the list. The boy deserves to be happy. The princess handled the reception perfectly. Everything ended, and she even made a lot of friends. In the past, the lady did not force herself to be loved because she was afraid that Theon would hate her. Never before has the heroine been lucky in love. She has long understood that she can neither accept nor give pure feelings, which she simply does not have. The princess goes inside the estate. They haven't seen each other for a long time, so the Duke of Bronte smiles. The blonde should have visited the lady earlier, but he didn't, so he immediately apologizes. It seems that the conversation turned to Jonathan. The boy studies at Epistem, which means that the prince probably mentioned him. The heroine interrupts the family's joy. The other day she saw another son of their family, namely Ethan, whom she had not known before. They will see each other the next time the couple met, when the girl was walking along the beach with her knight. The faces of the interlocutors changed as they asked if the lady was interested in the boy. They probably thought that she had fallen in love. The Duke was ill today, so he stayed in the room. Dorothea thought that they could become friends. After dinner, the Duchess led her guest into the garden where Ethan was already sitting at a table, and there was no one around. As soon as footsteps are heard, the young man stands up and greets the princess, of course clarifying her identity. Ethan is incredibly happy that such a person decided to visit him, and he can't stop smiling until the very end. Stefan left the greenhouse in the same way as the Duchess. The boy sits down at the table and asks why Ubera came. The young man pretended not to recognize the princess, which means he doesn't want to raise the topic of what happened on the beach. The blonde explains that she is improving her health in a neighboring palace. The maiden is sad because she has been locked up for so long, so she decides to stay in the fresh air. Her health is gradually improving. The place where Her Highness lives is wonderful. She likes living there. There are too many doubts inside. It is not clear whether this kindness is sincere or whether the young man is simply hiding other feelings. Looking closely at his face, the princess realizes that she can see how the hero's upper eyebrow trembles. Ethan has an unconscious habit that only comes out when he's laughing or making fun of someone. It became clear that the interlocutor was insincere. He definitely had something in mind. The lady gathered her strength and said that he was handsome. His face turns red and the young man tries to understand if this is true. He is clearly embarrassed by the compliment, as if he himself does not know about his beauty. The previous Ethan wouldn't have batted an eyelid at hearing something like this. A child's feelings are too different. The guy responds by saying that the princess is the most wonderful creature, and it seems that the snake, blinding with his sweet words, is still nearby. I have to admit that I have no friends at all. Jonathan doesn't like it when his brother goes outside. It doesn't suit him. Going outside, the young man hears only bad things, but no matter what, he is happy to see the princess. Blue-Eyed still wants to make friends. If a friend has time, he can visit the palace. I want to believe that they both will be able to live a wonderful life together. The girl sees the hero approaching her. He gently kisses her on the cheek. A strange expression froze on his face. Adult Ethan never allowed himself to do such a thing, but maybe the lady was just stuck in her thoughts. There is a chance that the blonde is not serious right now, but his smile makes me doubt it more and more. Clara calls Stefan. They are both in the Star Palace. The lady has a birthday soon. They need to prepare something. The nod means that the night will help. In fact, the brunette already has several ideas for gifts. There is only one problem, and it cannot be solved. No matter what Clara gives, the girl is unlikely to be delighted. The little girl is not crazy about dresses like her peers, so you will have to come up with a new option as soon as possible. Suddenly, an idea comes to have a festive party. The princess is only 9, but the prince liked it, so it will suit her too. From early morning, the heroine was gathered and sent to the dining room, where a variety of dishes stood in front of her. If the maid has prepared everything on the table, that's not bad at all. The weather is wonderful. Clara suggests going for a walk on the beach. Blue-Eyed doesn't say anything about the clouds in the sky. Stefan hasn't been seen since the morning. It became interesting what he's doing. The weather is windy for walking, and the water is not resting from the waves, but the blonde likes it just like that. There is a shell in front of me. A friend asks me to examine it. She is definitely up to something, but she doesn't say what exactly. There is nothing under the shell, and even around there is emptiness. Only sand. The lady's plans become more and more blurred. Clara has disappeared somewhere, leaving the lady alone, but in the distance, someone's dark figure can be seen approaching. A few minutes later, a lion stands in front of the girl and roars. It is obvious that it is Stefan, but he pretends not to know. The animal was the main character from a favorite book for covers. Usually the addition was used to put something more complex inside. It would be nice to tell the Duke to stop right now, but I still don't want to ruin the surprise. It won't be possible to turn around and leave. The girl understands that her friend is also uncomfortable. He was forced to do so. We'll have to wait a little longer. Picking up the shells, the maiden sends them to Stefan. It's like a gift. There is an unnecessary pocket on the suit. It is Clara who attaches pockets to all clothes, which means it was her idea from the beginning. Making cute eyes, the lady asks if anyone has come to see her for her birthday. The princess thanks for the congratulations, although she is ashamed, but the feeling when someone tries only for her makes her heart flutter. The guy picks up the girl and carries her forward. She doesn't believe what's happening. The knight has always been on Raymond's side. Only now did the lady realize that Greenwall was different from the image he worked hard and silently followed his path. The man made his own way, and his fate was like that of a princess who was not born an heir. The blonde confidently says that Stefan is a brave and confident man. He pauses only to say that he is a lion. It started to rain, of course. It was predictable. Given the clouds, but still unpleasant, I had to hurry to the palace. The lion did not go inside. On the contrary, he said goodbye and left so as not to let himself be discovered. Having changed her clothes, the blonde enters her room, finding on the table a letter from His Majesty Raymond, which she does not intend to read. Stefan came back, even smiling a little. The duo thought that the lady had been taken in and had not revealed their plans. The brunette says that he just returned from training. The girl, in response, remembers how she met a warrior Leo on the beach. Making a sad face, the heroine asks if Greenwall himself, who still hasn't done so, is going to give her something. The little girl is not going to leave the situation just like that because they deceived an innocent child. Receiving a gift later does not suit the lady, because her birthday will end. In fact, there is something that she wants to receive. The princess wants to learn fencing. She hates weak people and has realized many times that she can't do anything when she finds herself in a bad situation. When the heroine closed her eyes and imagined the sword in her hands, her heart was no longer troubled by greed. A good person can also be strong. It is not the sword that decides what is good and what is bad, but the person himself. Stefan must help overcome fears. Several months passed. It became much better. The body got used to swinging the sword, doing it with ease. The only thing the princess didn't understand was that when they give her a real sword, Greenwall is afraid that his ward will get hurt or something else. Someone appeared behind it was probably Stefan, so the sword went forward, but there was a mistake. Ethan apologizes for sneaking up. The girl quickly apologizes and is told that her skills are getting better every day, and compared to her friend, she is great. The princess had never actually seen the young man hold a sword. He had many supporters who did it for him. The boy is glad that the girl is getting better. Now she will be able to feel at least a little better. The girl asks why her friend came. He reminds her that he was allowed to come if he suddenly gets bored. Last time Bronte gave him a tour of his estate, and today the princess will show him the palace. First, he needs to take a bath, but if so, Ethan offers to show him the bathroom, all the while smiling. The young man says that the maiden will be able to wash her face and hands. His words mean nothing, but at first the lady was even scared. The heroine is struck by the thought that they can bring her a basin of water, so that she doesn't have to go inside the palace. The young man was joking, and so he simply waited in the living room. Half an hour later, Dorothea showed him her room. Before her rebirth, the Empress's chambers were very luxuriously furnished because she collected everything her heart desired and decorated the room. Those things filled the void and ultimately turned out to be simply useless. Even now the lady remembers such a pitiful appearance of her former self. Ethan brought a gift. He couldn't come empty-handed. So of course it was some kind of pendant with a stone. Obviously the thing is extremely expensive, so the girl refuses. It's too good for her. The blonde instantly became sad. It seems that his friend doesn't like this. The reason is different. They are complete strangers, and it's better to give this to close people. The young man was excited when someone came to him. For the first time he thought that the princess was the important person. Now he asks for forgiveness for burdening him with his feelings. Attention is drawn to the table where the letters from the imperial palace lie. They mean nothing to the princess. Surely the sheets contain Raymond's whining about how hard it is to study. If his sister had such a chance, she would not have missed it. Virgo began to sink into regret again. It would be better for her and Ray they should go their separate ways. Ethan still hasn't moved away from the nightstand. He can't figure out what they put there. Curiosity gets the better of him. Before the boy could ask more questions, the girl swept everything into a drawer. The thing was not a gift, but the lady never returned it. If a scarf is so important to a beauty, Bronte will definitely give something similar next time. The next day, chaos reigned in the palace. Some of the maids decided that it was time for the girl to return to the palace. A terrible epidemic had broken out. Of course, something can be done about the disease, but it is difficult for ordinary people to buy expensive medicines and get treatment. The lady doesn't plan to go back, but this will be a great opportunity to do something from the list. If there is a cure, then the disease can be defeated. Dorothy promises that she will provide everyone with medicine and staff. Although the blonde doesn't have a kind heart, she has money and will be able to do a good deed. The name and money became the solution to all problems in less than 15 days. The epidemic began to subside, and the city came back to life. Clara couldn't calm down and kept talking about what a wonderful person the princess was. There was no confidence that it was okay to throw money around like that, until the moment someone left a gift under the main gate. As a token of gratitude, the stranger brought a sack of potatoes, which is also strange. Ethan believed that this was how people decided to pay back because Her Highness saved them from death. The blonde doesn't fully believe it, but her friend continues to insist that everyone will remember Dorothy as a good person. Before this, the blue-eyed girl had not cared about good deeds, and yet someone was grateful to her. It warmed the soul. Clara was asked to plant the sprouted potatoes in the garden and cook the rest into a delicious dinner. Bronte has been invited to dinner. It would be an honor for him, so, of course, he accepts immediately. In the past, the man lost quite often, but now, despite the comparison of skills, he does not even change his position. The woman wants everything to be normal, but she only gets angry again and again. Her body does not move as she wants. Clara called everyone back, and then the lady decides to attack. This round will be hers. Stefan grabs his sword, reminding them that they need to leave. Raymond, as usual, looks at his letters. He noticed that he had not received a single answer for 3 whole years. Theon reassures his friend that the woman is probably very busy. They have not seen each other since then. The look full of pain remained somewhere inside. If there were not such strict rules in epistemy, the young man would have gone to his sister the brunette notes that since they have already done so a long time ago, perhaps they will let him go. Seeing the princess would be a good idea and perhaps one that could finally be realized. Since they haven't seen each other for a long time, Ray hopes that the lady will be glad to see him, and so it should be. As soon as the duo arrived at the castle, Clara yelled at them. It was already past lunchtime apparently. They decided to constantly disturb her. Sir Knight grabbed the sword with his hands again, leaving a few marks each time the situation became worse. Everyone around is doing the opposite, as if they want to irritate the maid. The blonde makes excuses. She had a lot of things to do that required more effort. The girl reports a new bag of food. The epidemic was defeated 2 years ago, but the locals still leave offerings. It's time to stop with the gifts, but unfortunately no one has found out who does this. The child runs too fast. The lady is not obliged to catch him every time he leaves the bag. The original idea was to invite him to dinner. The chef has a special task, to make magnificent dishes only for the heroine today. She will have a magnificent dinner with chicory. After the bath, Clara brought 2 identical letters that Raymond had sent from the islands. The girl still wasn't going to read anything, but she quickly realized that one of the messages was from the order to Stefan. This is the first time the maid sees a man receiving a letter, and it is not even clear what his reaction will be. The letter talks about an exam for promotion. Since an exam is mentioned, it means the guy has a chance to get the highest knighthood in the order. Such a chance almost never comes after years of waiting, but it also means that Stefan will leave the Star Palace. The boy will have to leave this week to make it all happen, but since there is no one else left, that means the Imperial Palace will no longer send escorts to protect Princess Dorothy. The blonde asks not to worry. Everything is calm in this place. The hero taught her how to handle a sword. She will protect herself. Kernan never even offered support to the lady. She knew that in the end she would be left all alone. Stefan will definitely pass the exams. The girl did not expect an invitation, but she is incredibly happy for him. Surely the friend will rise to the highest level in the order and accompany the crown prince and not the princess, who is of no importance. Although they spent little time, I would like to arrange something like a farewell party. If there is still time, everything will be done tomorrow. Stefan remains silent, in fact. During this time, Dorothy has become accustomed to the rude knight and has come to appreciate him more. The blonde makes her last request and wishes that they would listen to her. It seems to her that they were able to become friends. The hero remains silent but kneels down. He is the knight of Millénaire, and his duty is to protect only her. The girl does not understand why there are so many fools around her. They choose to give up and lose all glory. Everyone will say that Stefan is stupid. He needs to think before doing this. It will not lead to anything good. The man says that he doesn't care what might happen in the future. It turns out that this is exactly how he was before his rebirth. Then he held on until the very end. Even knowing that Raymond would lose, he was devoted to him. Blue-eyed cannot call Stefan selfish because she herself is not the best person by nature. This should have been accepted a long time ago. The duo went into the city to see the tablet. They had to get ahead, but the knight picked up the lady in his arms, still thinking of her as a child. It turned out that this year there will be a fencing competition. It will be held in the form of a tournament divided into age categories. That tournament will have a very large prize pool, which I would like to receive. The girl was silent and looked, but her eyes began to light up in earnest. She said that they should definitely sign up. The person who accepts applications just laughed as soon as the princess opened her mouth. She doesn't give up. She's already over 10. The required age has been reached. The man considered this ignorance, saying that it would probably be a grief for the parents to raise such a child. The princess tried her best to be kind, but it seems that nothing works anymore. She can't stand the terrible treatment. Stefan cut the table, ordering the rules to be followed, and only thanks to his strength was it possible to submit an application. A familiar voice is heard in the crowd. Jonathan is walking in front, and Ethan is behind, who answers something, and quickly corrects himself, calling the young man Sir. The blonde is not going to go home until she does one more good deed. Helping is the most important thing. Because of the number of gifts, the boy tripped and dropped everything, and of course a mountain of accusations, and even a slap rained down on him. Jonathan wanted to raise his hand again, but the princess appeared in front of him and shielded his friend. Stefan grabbed the Duke by the wrist, not allowing him to move while the lady helped Bronte to her feet. The brunette gets angry, shouting that he is an important person. He unfortunately does not know who is standing in front of him. That is why he behaves like this. Today the blue-eyed one will be kind and will not stoop to a low level, but if a friend has a desire to live a long life, it is better to behave as expected. Thanks to the knight, we managed to cope with all the problems, but it is not a fact that he will be there next time. The girl checks Ethan's cheek. It is very swollen, but the boy says that this happens to him very often. If it were old Bronte, he would never allow himself to be hit. He calls his brother Lord, and that makes a lot clear. The blonde asks the princess to stay with him until the man's anger subsides, which will take time. The duo went to the castle where Dorothy was surprised by Ray, who immediately rushed to hug her. Besides her brother, the girl noticed Theon, whom they hadn't seen for perhaps several years. The girl no longer wants to be affected by what she is trying to forget. They came all this way to torment the heroine, or just laugh. Raymond knows Theon, so he allowed him to go with him. The boy did not even think about what his sister wanted. He decided everything for her. No longer holding back, the girl screams, causing tears to appear in the guy's eyes. He thought that Dorothy was lonely, and that's why he came. The blue-eyed man is crying as if he is again trying to make the girl into a villain who only gets in everyone's way. Opening the door, the lady bumps into Fried. He has the same look as at that event. She runs away thinking only about her failure. She wanted to show herself good, but again, nothing worked out. Theon hurries after the beauty, and in order to stop her, grabs her hand. She waited so long for him to do this. She would like to turn around, but she cannot. The brunette regretted that he had arrived without warning. It would have been better to do otherwise, but he could not connect their schedules. The guy wasn't even a member of the imperial family, but he really wanted to see the princess. But that time they weren't able to say goodbye properly. I had to worry a lot whether it was because of the pomegranate juice or something else, but it doesn't matter anymore. To be close, the young man offered to go with a friend. He hoped that they would be able to talk, but everything ended in disaster. The most disturbing thing is the expression that freezes on the princess's face. Every time they see each other, it is probably not the best. The boy wants to get along, and in his head he again has memories from the past when the lady also wanted the same thing and tried her best. Before the thoughts were different, but now it has changed. Ethan comes to ask about the medicine for the cheek. The girl asks to wait a little. She brought a guest and completely forgot, so it looks like she will have to leave. In the room, the blonde starts to rush about. The friend should sit down while she takes with her the healing ointment, which should be somewhere. It's impossible not to understand that from the outside the heroine looked stupid. Theon wanted to get along, and she simply ran away. When the cure was finally found, the Duke refused it. Bronte thought that the princess needed it more now, considering how red she was. The girl pushes his hand away, shouting that she is not sick. It seems that the hero finally understood what was wrong and why she came. The guy really likes the princess, but he lies. Again, the jokes are very unpleasant, and judging by this, Dorothy was very hurt. It seemed that Ethan had gone overboard with his expressions, but a strange feeling remained inside. Theon appeared in the distance of the corridor, who immediately asks who is following him. He really doesn't understand anything. The blonde introduces himself and receives a question about the medicine because the princess herself gave it to him. Everything went away instantly. After it turned out that Fried was standing in front of the Duke, he immediately became overjoyed and asked for forgiveness for not admitting it earlier. Of course, Theon wants to visit Dorothea, but he is stopped. The girl is probably tired after training and walking, so she wants to be alone. The question seems unexpected. The man asks if he and the princess are close. The couple see each other at least once a week. This explains everything. The practice of smiling was good, but it doesn't get any better every time there is such an expression, as if tears are about to flow, and every time it is only when Theon is nearby. Someone stopped outside the door but strangely did not go inside. It turned out that it was not someone, but Stefan. The young man entered and accepted the invitation to sit next to him on the sofa. Silence fell in the room again, but this time it was awkward. The girl asks her to listen. Since the knight is not even busy with anything, she had a nightmare where the one she likes was. That man hated the princess so much that he even died right in her chambers. The maiden thought for a long time about what this meant to her. The birth of the child even led to the death of the mother. Maybe she was a bad person from the beginning. Sometimes Dorothy is afraid she is afraid that in her soul there is nothing but pure evil that has already sprouted. The lady must look stupid, but no, Stefan reaches out for a hug and says that the lady is a good child. The blonde is silent, but in her thoughts she asks for forgiveness for having killed the knight in her past life. She still wants to live a new life as perfectly as possible. Clara looked for the princess, but found Raymond, who was sitting and still crying a little. He realized that Dorothea did not love him. The blonde guy can't understand what's so terrible about worrying about his sister. He managed to wait until the day of vacation, but in the girl's eyes he's now just a fool. The maid does not agree the boy entered the best academy where the most talented children in the world are located. The prince hoped that the maiden would like him, but now he himself does not know what to do. Maybe there is a way to reconcile the family, but Clara does not yet know which one. Perhaps if you do what Dorothy likes, she will like the hero more. I want to believe that. The princess, as the nanny knows, loves fencing and practices diligently almost daily to prove her worth to everyone. There will be a competition in this village in a few days. The prince can participate. Blue Eyes had already painted a picture of how, having won, he would receive recognition from Dorothy, who would think he was cool. Theon thought that Her Highness was not feeling well, and that it would be better for him to leave, but the nanny forbade it. The duo would wait until she figured everything out. Ray insists that everything is happening because of him, but Fried no longer thinks so. According to him, the heroine is unhappy precisely because of this. In his head, thoughts are that they are not even close. There is no chance attention is drawn to the handkerchief with his name, which it seemed should have been thrown away a long time ago. The lady can't sleep again. She stands on the balcony looking at the stars. Surely the whole reason is Theon. The handkerchief, which was in her hands all this time, flies somewhere down. The girl herself did not notice how it happened. Someone below picks up the thing. Dark hair makes it clear who is in front of the lady. Now Fried knows that she had the gift. Now he knows that the thing was not thrown away immediately after leaving, pretending not to notice anything. Theon asks why the lady is still not sleeping. It is already night outside. The lady just wanted to return what was given to her to its rightful owner, and she thinks that she tried hard. The smile suits her face. Even the interlocutor, who is always attentive to all the small details, notices this. Quickly and deftly climbing the tree, the man also smiles back, thanking them for waiting for him, and it's clear what he means. He himself always ran away from Uber, but here he suddenly changed. Her eyes start to sting, as does her nose. It feels like a stream of tears is about to flow while the guy is in the tree. She is nervous, so she asks to come down and only then talk. The princess is truly a mysterious person. There can be no other explanation. She does not fit the standards at all. The young man gathers up the courage to ask if Dorothy is uncomfortable when they are together. The blonde breaks down, saying that this is not so. She cannot reveal the truth. Say that echoes of the past which constantly haunt her, not leaving her alone, are to blame for everything. The young man feels relieved. He wanted to say that he was sorry that he couldn't do anything during the ceremony that time he couldn't write, but since they were now talking face to face, one could say that he missed her. All this is not a dream, and the love of his life, who constantly avoided his wife, finally came and said the important words himself. The boy hears himself asked what he was doing so late in this garden. It turned out that the young man incredibly likes the night, and he can't even explain what kind of feelings he constantly experiences. The girl herself knows that the hero likes to walk at night and then sleep during the day. It's time to go back to bed this time. Even Theon himself says so. He really thinks that this is what should be done. The boy allows her to keep the handkerchief that he had forgotten before he never gave gifts, so the heroine reacts especially warmly. Until late at night, the lady remembered all the moments and reminded herself that Fried was not for her but for Julia. If only there was a chance, everything would be different in the morning. Clara made a fuss when she found out that even Dorothea was participating in the competition, considering that she was still a child. The duo does not understand why the brunette still does not calm down. She remembers how she advised His Highness to also take part, and how she asked him to win. The knight did not tell her anything, and a catastrophe awaits them all. The maid turns away in thought. It would be bad if they were suddenly put against each other. Although it is not necessary that this will happen, it is almost impossible to calculate the probability. An hour later, the brother and sister met in the same place the girl hoped, until the very end that he had simply come to look. but it soon became clear that this was not at all as expected. The first thing the lady presented to Clara was this, asking if she knew about everything that was happening. The woman denied it, saying that she did not think that it would turn out like this. No one told her that the princess would participate. Raymond himself doesn't know at all what to do. He's ready to cry because he realized what a mistake he made. For some reason, the lady's head had the idea to just give up and end all the problems. Still, the blonde won't be able to move away from her future victory. She's not obliged to give up her hobbies just for the sake of her stupid brother, and this doesn't make her the selfish one she was in the past. As it's time to read the lists, Clara prays that Ray and Dorothea don't clash in the first round. Everything seems to be going well, because the lady's opponent is some guy named Alex. Ethan also came to the event and did not understand where Dorothy came from in such a place. Her opponent is almost twice as big. She simply will not have a good chance to take advantage of it. That will be the end of it. The boy approached his father to say that they needed to make the right arrangement. It would be worthwhile to put everyone in the same weight category. There was no other way because it would not be entirely effective and fair. Children with a big difference in height are on the wrong side of luck. People will get bored of seeing obvious results if you change the lists. More viewers will come to watch the Bronte family competition. Of course, the man was delighted. He realized that the kid had done everything right, even correctly. Of course, the blonde would instruct the head to change the lists so that everything would end well. The girl did not understand why the list had suddenly changed. The beauty's former opponent laughed. He was ashamed to fight with a child, but he did not think that she would be so scared. Answering rudely, the woman states that she was not afraid. Most likely, the organizers want the stranger to live a little longer. Despite his size, she would not allow him to lose in the first round. The brunette is angry. The girl is like a mouse. You can't tell that she has any strength. If he wants it so much, they will go to the ring. But if they start here, it will be considered that all this is too mean. If someone hadn't changed the list, the girl would have gotten what she deserved long ago. This is what would have awaited her. The heroine believes that everything will remain as it is, nothing can be changed, and she will have to fight new opponents. The first to come out is the prince, who, noticing his sister in the crowd, begins to wave his hand to her to attract attention. Her greeting would have encouraged him, but nothing happened. The young man is a fool, but when something serious happens, his face changes too much, causing others to be surprised. The lady had long noticed exactly this about the guy. Even in his past life, it was too obvious. Of course, the hero won literally a few minutes after the start of the first round. He began jumping and calling Dorothy to show how perfect he managed to become. This again irritates her a little. The second fight begins, and the princess enters the ring. Ethan remembers her saying that she came to the Star Palace only to recover and not for anything else. It would have been better if they had given him a real sword, but of course nothing happened. After a few moments, the enemy was lying on the ground. He was too slow for a normal fight. Dorothy won, making her brother jump for joy. He didn't think the lady was so good when they lived in the palace. Everything was different. The cold again, no need to pretend to understand what was happening. The young man is sure that the girl tried her best only to achieve a good result. At this rate, they will meet in the final, and then it will be something that one would not want to see, because Dorothy is unlikely to feel sorry for the prince. The duo confidently moved towards the final, and the girl was already going to become a semi-finalist, but then a child named Joy entered the ring who said that he must win at any cost. The main character will definitely be amazed, and then the red-headed one will be able to take his rightful prize. His face seems so familiar, but the girl cannot understand where she saw him before. It is too difficult. Suddenly a memory dawned on my mind. This boy was the one who left offerings of various fruits and vegetables under the gate every month. It seems that the rival's thoughts are occupied with something else, and she is caught on this. Joy talks too much. He should hold his horses and calm down. He has enough skills to defeat a child. But there are questions. The lady wants to know why the red-headed man is doing this for only 10 gold pieces. In his opinion, Dorothy is talking nonsense since he could easily live for a whole month on that kind of money. In a few blows, the princess puts a man on the ground. If suddenly he wants to sell his life for a higher price, he can always come to her estate. It is the blonde who accepts and eats all the gifts. Finally, the long-awaited finale has arrived, which promises to be literally magical, with people crowding around, wanting to know who will emerge victorious from this cruel game of death. Dorothy wants to take first place. All her opponents are so confident in their victory that it begins to anger. Probably the girl just looks too weak, and because of this, the anger is even greater. Clara, standing in the distance, does not understand who will win, and at that very moment the prince accidentally hits his sister on the shoulder. He immediately worries, asking if it hurts a lot and if it was that terrible. The guy tries to continue the fight, but physically cannot even after the order not to give in. The girl is fed up with all this. She throws the sword on the ground and demonstratively turns around to leave the ring. Running ahead after his sister, the man assures that it is stupid to interrupt everything. Just because of anger, he did not notice how he caught the rope and a large tapestry almost fell on him, which ended up on the princess since she pushed it away. Everything could have ended differently. There was no point in running forward. The blue-eyed girl understood that it would be better for an insignificant princess like her to get hurt than the heir. If both were in danger, it would not end well. Clara assures that this would not have happened if the lady had been in danger. She and Sir Knight would have saved her because they serve only her, and this will be the case until the very end of their lives. A smile is reflected on her face until the girl understands how such happiness came to her in her past life. She did not have a single chance that could be used, and then everything changed. Raymond is sobbing. His feelings can no longer be contained. They have burst out. The visit was a complete disaster from the start. Just like Dorothy said, she should have been listened to. It was better to leave the boy alone now. Theon couldn't help in any way, and so he moved outside the room to give him some space. He met Ethan on the street. The blonde was just thinking about Frida because since his arrival, Dorothy has been feeling uneasy. It seems he is too concerned about the princess's affairs and well-being. The interlocutor could not help but notice this because all this is quite obvious. The whole point is that Bronte is in love with Her Majesty. He heard that Theon also loves a person, or rather Julia, so of course he will understand his feelings. The brunette tries to defend himself, saying that it seems that everything he heard was not true, just stupid rumors that mean nothing. Delevin is just a friend to the hero. Ethan was not allowed to answer because the maid came running to report the fact that the lady had woken up. Her treatment was finished, and it seemed that now she would get better. The Duke cannot believe that the princess was injured in the competition he organized. He is lucky that only Milaner was injured and not the greater number of those who live in this city. The girl is not angry at all, thanks to the help she was given first aid in time. Of course she will be happy even in such a case. Of course. Immediately after the conversation the girl leaves, the blonde would like to ask how she feels but does not. There is hope that next time the man will be able to protect the beauty properly. The competition was truly amazing, but after everything that happened, the lady didn't even look at anyone. She simply wasn't in the mood for it, which is usually absent anyway. The girl still doesn't quite understand why she saved Ray that time. He should have been the one who got nailed by the beam, because he would have received better help than her. The guy keeps apologizing for how it all ended. The next time the prince forbids his sister to behave like this, he never wanted her to suffer because of him, or in general to suffer or experience any manifestations of pain that would end badly. Such a soft man cannot be a normal emperor. Dorothy could not help but say that her brother needed to fix this. It was reckless, even if it is clear that he did not even understand anything. The kindness that made the young man continue to try to please her, no matter how much his sister pushed him away, should be put aside. Even in her second life, the lady never acquired such a feeling. The blonde promises that he will do everything in his power to help the lady. If she has any difficulties or troubles, he will become her right hand, which will replace the real one. If the words are true, the lady already has options. In the evening, the blonde finally sank onto a soft bed. She was pleased that everything ended well, but she remembered the conversation with Clara about Theon going back to the capital. In the morning, he would have left earlier but stayed for the sake of the crown prince's fight. The lady doesn't even remember how long it's been since she was in the imperial palace, but she doesn't know when they'll see each other at least once more. She hates to part without a promise of a meeting as such. The princess wants to be greedy, at least one last time. She went out into the corridor, and near the door, she met Theon, who was really about to leave. Of course, the lady came to say goodbye because she heard that he was leaving. The guy turns his attention to the hand, asking if everything is okay, and receiving a positive answer. When that tapestry fell down, the man also wanted to run up to help the lady. If he were stronger, it would have worked out better. The brunette is glad that his body is already on the mend. He smiles softly, promising that at their next meeting he will become stronger and will be able to make sure that his friend does not suffer from some little thing. The man standing next to her had always been cold towards the lady, but here, for some reason, he changed. Perhaps it was just politeness towards the royal person. He added that if Melaner did not mind, she would receive letters from time to time. It's already quite light outside, it's time to leave. And the young man asks a strange question at the end, asking if Ethan is just a friend if he just visits the princess when she's in the palace, so anything is possible. Fried quickly realized that the boy's feelings were not mutual, and no matter what he said, Dorothea would not even deign to look at him. For the last time he smiled, promising that they would see each other again soon, making the meeting even better. It was almost impossible to answer anything, because the lady began to stutter. There were too many different feelings inside. The girl wished him a good journey and quickly ran back into the room. She can't fall asleep in bed. Moments are mixed up inside that gradually dissolve. The lady closes her eyes because this is increasingly reminiscent of a beautiful dream that she doesn't want to end. The emperor wrote in his will that he wanted to protect the heir from his sister. That was his will. Ethan believes that the empress will be a good ruler, and the era in which the light determines the main one must end. The girl destroyed all of her brother's minions and made it so that she got into his chambers. This scene was worthy of the funeral of the emperor. Smiling, the young man asks his sister to come inside. The blonde seems calm. He heard about the victory over Hark, so he offers to raise a toast in honor of this significant event. If the lady refuses, they will drink in honor of the deceased father, who already deserves much honor. The girl always hated Kernan. He simply answered her in the same way once again. The young man does not see the problem, but now everything will change. The sister arrived to finish off Melaner. The only thing the young man wants is for the lady not to regret her choice later again, turning all the words around. The heroine assures that her brother should have done it. He already knows what irritates her the most. Killing Raymond would mean rebellion, but if he killed the princess, it would only be a reasonable measure to preserve the throne for security purposes. Even after the victory, the girl would be criticized to the end, calling her a merciless tyrant. From birth, she had to face great injustices that made her suffer constantly. The lady had already learned this, and the prince has no right to pretend that he does not understand anything. The young man attacks first to defend himself and cuts off her hair. Madness is reflected inside her pupils. If he wants to win, then it should have been her hands. For some reason, he has a pitiful look when he is obliged to commit a terrible thing. Ray is too stupid to understand that they will not leave the hall together and to think that everything will be like before. The blade pierced the heart, making him cough up blood. The girl smiles. She won, and now the throne belongs only to her. The guy smiles and carefully straightens his sister's hair. He apologizes for not being good enough. Unfortunately, everything ended very badly. A second ago, the heroine was happy, but everything changed. Before his death, the emperor asked her not to cry, but in order not to give in to her emotions, Melaner throws her body away, believing that she is crying from joy because she has finally achieved her most important goal in this life. The beauty wakes up in a cold sweat. There is silence all around, and it was all just a bad dream, reminiscent of the sins committed in the distant past, when everything was just beginning. The lady does not know what to say. The situations are too similar. If you think about it, it is no longer certain whether Raymond was completely honest during the final fight at that tournament in the city. It is not clear whether Ubra actually defeated him or he allowed her to do so. The same could have happened that time. The blonde is angry, and there are many reasons for that now. It seems to her that she did not seize the throne on her own. Her brother simply gave in to her choosing death so as not to kill his sister. She does not like that. No one remembers anything, and she returned alone. Someone knocked on the door and the prince's head appeared in the doorway. He came to check if the princess was sleeping. It seemed to him that he could hear some sounds. She was probably not sleeping because of the severe pain in her arm. Even after the words that everything was fine, the young man decided to stay close. That was the final decision, or rather his choice which remained. He would do everything for Dorothea. Covering his sister with a blanket and adjusting the edges, the guy asks if she ever missed her mother. The answer, no, sounds too rude, but the hero doesn't seem to pay attention because he himself still sometimes misses her, remembering her warm hands and smile. Dorothy looks down sadly. She is sorry that her mother died because of her. The empress gave life to the child, and she herself said goodbye to her dreams and family. If she had not been born, Kernan and his loved ones would have lived together. The blonde frowns sharply. It's better not to express himself like that because in the end it doesn't sound like something good. The lady might think he's stupid, but he knows exactly what's going on and what it refers to. There were always scary people around and their evil tongues who gossiped about the tragedy of the emperor's family. His wife gave birth to a girl and she grew up to be such a monster. The only one who now claims otherwise is the prince. He believes that the lady saved him and he came because she could not sleep. He did all this only for the sake of the one whom he sincerely loves, like no one else. The blonde hears that he sometimes acts like a fool, but in response he smiles and says that Dorothy sometimes does the same. The girl turns away. The brother came to make sure she fell asleep, but in the end he chatters nonstop. The young man still believes that not all is lost. He offers to return with him to Lampas where they will belong. The heroine will never come back even when she is a little better. After all, she did not sign up for this. Realizing that his opinion cannot be changed, the hero asks if he can come again. This place which the imperial family uses to restore their health also belongs to his father, so the answer does not matter. Ray shouldn't have asked permission, but he did it anyway. Alas, nothing can be changed. Turning around, the lady sees how the guy has already fallen asleep. His head down on his hands, he has completely failed to cope with the task of who will be the nanny. The blonde is advised to go to bed, but instead of going to his room, the young man simply climbs into his sister's bed and hugs her shoulder, smiling serenely. The boy said everything that had already happened, and at the same time, as if nothing had happened, he fell asleep. There were still many thoughts in his head. The lady thought until the night how life would have changed if she had not killed the prince back then in the past. In the morning, Clara came into the room wanting to wake up the two. She froze near the entrance when she saw them sleeping in bed. It is not clear what happened, but it seems that a truce has already happened. I remember how the guy promised that he would do anything pretending to understand what was being discussed, although he was definitely not prepared for the fact that his sister would send him on all sorts of trivial matters that were not worth his attention. The blonde didn't expect that her brother would do anything without any hesitation. The heir had no sense of self-worth at all. This is something that was understood in a few hours spent together. The woman asked to bring her a pen and paper. The boy returned a few minutes later and put everything on the table. Because of her hand, the lady cannot write normally, so her beloved brother will do it for her. Taking the pen in his hands, the young man asks what he should write. First in the center should be Chapter 1, and then the genealogy of the Melaner family starting from the most ancient times. The girl continues to dictate names, each sounding stranger than the other, and the hero gradually begins to get bored because he does not even understand what the meaning is. There is nothing left to do but ask why the sister suddenly needed to rewrite the entire Melaner dynasty. She just loves to study. There are no other options, only this, and for her, it is reasonable. There is a strange feeling inside. It seems that what is written is helping Dorothy, but at the same time, the effect is created as if the prince himself is studying the lady, coughs and says that she has a sore throat, which means that the young man must finish on his own. He seems to have remembered everything, which means he can handle it. Blue Eyes herself built her own plan, which is ideal for her. Her brother will study at least like this, because it will be bad if he suddenly cannot remember the tree when he arrives back at the Epistemu Academy. Suddenly the topic changes. It becomes about the letters the prince sent and whether his sister received them. Relief that they got through, because initially it seemed like there was a mistake somewhere. The friend was worried that it would be sad if no one wrote. Being alone and even being sick alone are the most terrible feelings. But the blonde doesn't agree at all. She likes loneliness the way it is. Nothing can be changed, and there is no need to interfere in the process. In truth, the princess lied. If someone said that they enjoy solitude, they were never alone. Even if the body does not need anyone, there should be a place for the soul where it would be calmer. The young man exhales. It always seemed to him that Dorothy was like an older sister to him, not a younger one. They were different. Ray hates being alone where there is no one around. The only thing the blonde wants to know at the moment is why his sister hates him. If he has a reason, maybe he can fix everything, and then they will become closer. The heroine cannot say her thoughts out loud. She hates her brother because he is so wonderful and handsome to the point of insanity, because he is the only one who can see the spirit of light like a special person. The boy has always received and continues to receive more than his sister. In her opinion, this is unfair. The lady killed him in his past life, but now she hates him because the boy has forgotten all the memories of the past. She alone is obliged to bear this burden. On top of that, Milena can no longer blame the one who tries so hard, goes out of his way, just to get a little attention. The girl wants to know why he gave up at the tournament. After the words about the competition, his face was covered in cold sweat. Waving it off, the blonde assures that he was simply worried about Dorothy, so he could not go further, considering how badly everything could have ended. In my head, instead of the present, the past is still there. I want to know how Raymond felt when his sister's sword pierced his chest. This time he speaks seriously. There was never any intention to hurt a loved one. Finally, the truth comes out as if by itself. The lady hates the fact that Ray is good and she is always bad. The boy is still very young, so she does not understand, but it is better not to show all the details so as not to hurt his fragile soul. Lying down on the bed, the girl says that she is very tired. One chapter is enough, and tomorrow there will be 2 pieces so that she can finish everything. The hero nods. He understands why all this was started. Placing his hand over his heart, the young man promises that he will definitely be in the top 3. Next time they have exams, the princess's expression describes irritation and rather incomprehension. His sister has called him stupid more than once, but this can be corrected because once he gets into the list of the best students, the man will earn a completely different title and will be more than happy about it. Such are his hopes. It's all over, but definitely not in the Bronte estate. The boy grabs his brother by the clothes, screaming. He doesn't understand why they didn't tell him that that girl was the princess herself. Ethan didn't even have a chance to open his mouth. Jonathan doesn't calm down because the blonde is brazenly lying. He had a chance to say something, or at least give a sign while he was standing behind the wonderful Dorothea. Now he acts as if he has the right to ignore. Now it's time to get personal, because the brunette is shouting something about his brother being like his mother, who was no different and didn't even shine with intelligence. During the squabble, the Duchess came, who of course heard everything. Since the hero can't take care of the youngest, his friends won't attend future receptions. That's the condition that was set. The blonde whines, asking if he really is such a worthless thing. Ethan accepts the consolation and then talks about what happened during the tournament. The princess apparently got hurt in an accident which made her wake up. The kid doesn't ask for too much, he just wants to visit the girl and check on her recovery. The Duchess smiles. Of course she will immediately prepare the best carriage. Nodding towards his brother, the hero asks if he wants to go with him, but he only starts to get angry. He doesn't think he's obligated to express any regret to the princess, but since that's the case, Ethan will go alone. Clara is in the kitchen as usual, running the show. She is thinking about whether the lady will like it if the soup is prepared by a familiar person. The blonde just has to wait a little and she will get everything she wants. The girl takes a sip of what she has prepared, but understands that something is still missing. She thinks that she should ask someone for their opinion, but everyone around her is busy. Stefan appears in the doorway, so he will be the test subject. The young man takes the plate, and after trying it, remains silent. The brunette immediately loses heart. Perhaps everything is so bad that the knight simply has nothing to say and he does not want to upset the nanny. After another minute, the hero finally says that the food was delicious. The beauty perked up, but was also surprised that the man, it turns out, can talk. His hand accidentally touches the plate, and the contents spill. Instant words of apology burst out. The lady tries to make amends by drying the clothes and then sending them to the wash so that everything is clean like before. The knight blushes and pushes his girlfriend away. He does not listen to the fact that if he does not wipe the stain, then everything will only get worse. He tries to run away, but on the way to the exit, he hits his foot on a table standing to the side. The blonde went for another walk while she still had free time. The weather was wonderful. Ethan said that he would come to see her, but so far he is not visible, as if he completely forgot about the meeting. After only 5 minutes, a friend showed up, who immediately apologized for being a little late. He was really worried, and that's why he made the appointment. There was a fear that the injury would hinder the lady in her future fencing career. The bone is only slightly cracked, and when everything heals, the arm will be as good as new. There will be no more problems today. It is windy outside. Since the lady has only just recovered, the Duke throws his cape over her shoulders. The guy always has a floral scent that intoxicates the mind. Rummaging in his pocket, the boy takes out a gift. Of course, he could not come empty-handed. This is not allowed when you meet a royal person. The blonde refuses. He had no obligation to give her gifts. The accident happened because the Bronte family could not take care of it. The handkerchief appeared in his hands as soon as the bundle was thrown away. The young man smiles. He remembers how the lady did not like the gift in the form of a pendant and hopes that the new variation will be to her liking. A smile lights up his bright face. Of course, Dorothy likes him very much. It's not often that she is given something from the heart, and he so often remembers her preferences. The eyes carefully study the drawing. Usually flowers or birds are embroidered on such things, but not a sword. The golden colors make something outlandish out of it. In a past life, the princess had something similar. Immediately asking questions, the lady clarifies the origin of the miracle. As it turns out, Ethan personally asked to prepare the thing because he knew that swords are Melena's passion. The young man is no slouch either. He wants to ask for something specifically, what normal people usually do. The girl stands there with her eyebrows crossed because she has no idea what they are talking about. A blonde man wants to sign his girlfriend's cast. A stupid picture immediately appears in his head. Encouraging words or funny comments will not be appropriate, but this is exactly what the interlocutor has in mind. This is something that kids like Raymond usually do, but not Ethan, which makes it even stranger. Having brought ink, the hero wrote about old wounds from which a beautiful pearl will be born, and with its bright radiance will dispel all the darkness. The hero always wanted to say these special words, which mean much more to him than one could imagine. The girl laughed. She could not have allowed it, but in the end, everything ended well. The lady has fallen for the bait again, thereby driving herself into the original impasse. Bronte hopes that he will be allowed to come at least one more time, because this is what he wants again. Seeing her more often will be a great gift. After the brother left, the castle became very calm and good. The soul wants to sing, but now again everything is at risk of being destroyed, because a letter arrived, perhaps from Raymond himself. The maiden was even prepared for the young man to write to her, but she froze when she heard that the request came from Kernan from the palace. It was unclear what he needed and why he was calling her back. For 2 years, the father never even remembered his daughter's existence. He pretended that he didn't need the girl, but now he asks her to fulfill her duty as a princess. The emperor could imagine anything, but he had to be prepared for such an outcome of events, which ultimately turned out to be terrible. The royal family from Hark would arrive very soon. The letter said that the maiden was obliged to meet the guests. In the past, after ascending to the throne of Ubera, the heroine annexed more territories to it than anyone else had done before. Among the options was that very kingdom. The princess tries to remember why she did this. It was all because of Ethan Monica. The bride of the prince who ascended the throne liked Bronte. The girl's family decided to attack Nereus only for political reasons, but then the blonde man intervened, or to be more precise. As usual, he showed up at one of the events that the empress was holding. Monica, like the other girls, was enchanted by the beauty. The guy truly enjoyed his superiority. He saw how the lady was shy and stuttered when such a handsome man spoke to her. In the end, the brunette announced to her fiancé that she was breaking off the engagement. Even if Ethan had no intention of being with her, she could not marry without the dictates of her heart. She needed true love. In a fit of anger, Nereus accused Bronte, and after that, every time he saw the Prime Minister, he would cling to him as if he wanted to kill him out of jealousy, because according to him, the young man had drawn a girl into his dirty deeds. Ethan kept his head up until the very end. It was Prince Harka's fault that he couldn't protect his own woman. He didn't have to act like that and blame everyone around him. Nereus was even more angry and promised that the man would regret it immediately after ascending to the throne. He kept his word and attacked the empire. His first target was the region of Phrygia, where the enemy's family was located. At that time, the empress decided not to sit back and went into battle with her faithful assistant. Memories associated with the future ruler make you feel bad. Come to think of it, he ignored Ethan from the very beginning and sarcastically spread false rumors about him. The two were always at odds, constantly arguing. In fact, the princess was not delighted with Nereus either, and when her friend mocked him, she even liked it quite a bit. Trying to throw off the clouding, the lady convinces herself that she should feel sorry for the guy who could not stand Monica's decision. Blue Eyes thinks that they haven't seen each other yet in the current situation. The Bronte family would not send Ethan to such a place. Even though the matter is postponed for now, they can meet later now that the lady has been reborn. She wants everything to be relatively good. There's a lot going on right now, and maybe this time they'll be able to get along, and Ethan will just have to make a good first impression, thereby maintaining friendly relations. If those two have good memories, then several thousand people will not die in the war. Thus, the heroine will be able to fulfill part of the plan, or more precisely, with the third point. The girl asked for a carriage to be sent, and within half an hour she was at Bronte's house. The boy was running around, asking what should be prepared and what tea to choose. He looked happy. The princess immediately gets to the most important thing, that a delegation from another country will soon arrive as a member of the royal family. The blonde will have to greet the guests. She will simply have no choice. The blonde guy says he will be greeting visitors with his girlfriend. Strangely enough, his parents allowed the guy to attend, although it probably wasn't the best decision they made. Until now, the acquaintance had not shown up at social receptions. Everything will not go according to plan. The hero has already heard that Prince Harka is the same age as them, so it will definitely not be boring. Jumping up, the beauty screams, "No!" Nereus will ignore the guy since he failed to enter epistem, and the Duke will regret that he decided to show his son to the public after this. Ethan will be hurt. Blue-Eyed still doesn't understand how she should behave, but then thoughts about a good astrologer come to mind whom Clara recommended. He recently visited their city. The princess comes up with an excuse for her behavior. She saw a bad sign on the tarot cards, and although she does not understand such things, there is a good astrologer among the courtiers who predicted the future. It has already been said that if Ethan's pure soul meets someone from the Hark family, it will definitely attract the energy of death, which will provoke the end of life. After a moment of silence, the blonde suddenly starts laughing lightly. The lady saw everything in such detail, and it was she who asked about her friend. The girl quickly came up with an excuse. So now she is making excuses. Now it even became a bit awkward. Of course, the interlocutor has something in his head, but he does not reveal his thoughts. He does not believe in the prediction of tarot cards, but the princess wants this. So in the end, all that remains is to agree. In return, the young man asks for his wish to be fulfilled. This is all he hopes to receive for now. The boy falls silent. Apparently, it is difficult for him to formulate what he wants to say, because it has a special appearance. Ethan smiled, finally asking to accompany the young lady on her debut day. He didn't ask for anything special, but he surely understood that it also carried a lot of meaning in society. Before the rebirth, the blonde had no partner at that evening. The position of accompanying the proceedings was akin to punishment, which no one wanted to fall under. Everyone carefully avoided the woman. In the end, Raymond seemed to take pity and proposed the candidacy of his friend Theon, who simply could not refuse his request, and the imperial order of His Majesty. The brunette should have refused too, and, of course, then the whole situation would have been completely different. It was from that evening that the blonde truly fell in love with Frid. This became the beginning of all the young man's misfortunes. The heroine does not remember what expression he had on his face. If you think about it, it was the happiest period of the princess's life. Yes, she was not loved, but she was not hated either. After what happened, Kernan insisted on an engagement with Theon to strengthen ties with the Archduke Ethan, distracts from thoughts he still asks to promise that on the day of the debut, the lady will offer him her hand. Of course it is awkward to talk about such things with your friend, but in the end, it is good that the lady will have a partner. In any case, no one else will accompany her. It remains to cling to the thin threads of consciousness. That day, the two said goodbye, promising each other that the day they were waiting for would come very soon. In the morning, the princess was introduced to Prince Nereus, who of course stood with his chin held high. The heroine begs her mother not to be nervous and to keep smiling. She needs to maintain a good relationship with Hark in order to avoid future wars and losses in the form of ordinary people. Pons is the first to open his mouth, noting that the princess's face is worthy of his attention. In his thoughts, the lady has already made him feel sorry for her, but of course, in reality, she simply continues to smile. The servant worries, asking him to be more careful. Turning his gaze usually to the young lady, the man chuckled. They say she doesn't even know how to control the spirit. Of course, she's not worth attention. The Nereus family has the power of water that they possess. Melaner and Fried have a long history during which the connection between the families has weakened. The Hark dynasty, in turn, tried hard to maintain close ties with their spirits, and it is for this simple reason that the young man treats the royal person and the empire in general with arrogance. With sparkling eyes, the lady reminds that their state is very small, so the status of the princess of the empire is equal to the position of the king of a small country. Even without strength, the lady can easily kill her interlocutor and wipe his country into dust, but she will not do so. Another mockery: the lady cannot control spirits but is still called a royal person. The boy should have gone through the manners course again, which is taught before entering epistemy. The blonde herself cannot judge because she did not even enter there. She did not get into the academy of her own free will, not because of stupidity. Judging by Ponce's ability to behave so diplomatically, his companion has more education than he does. Neither of them gives up. Each one picks up increasingly sharp phrases and remains in place, deciding how to do all this. To check the level, the lady called the guest into the room where she began asking questions. He could not even answer the basics of the basics about changes in agriculture and fisheries. Now that the princess won, he can calmly rejoice. Previously, at the sight of this kid, the empress would probably have gotten into a fight, which means she has grown up. Nereus still asks, not to get cocky. Mastering a sword is no less important than knowledge of the exact sciences. It is noticeable that they may even be able to compete, but here we are talking about something else. Ponce himself is more confident with a sword than with books. The blue-eyed one is all for it. But if she wins, they will only treat her with the utmost politeness. The girl had her first competition after the cast was removed, but even so, the opponent had no chance of winning. He was told not to regret it later, but the arrogance was overflowing even at the last moment. Anger appeared inside, which made it more difficult to control herself before she could come to her senses. The lady found herself in a whirlwind of water. She did not know how to control her spirit, which meant she had no right to laugh at anyone. The princess can't control herself or even breathe because of the water that's pouring in everywhere, and a man's laughter can be heard promising that Hark will soon take over Ubera just because of such a worthless girl. The woman gathered the rest of her strength in her hands and cut the water with her sword, thereby breaking out. Clara and Stefan run up to her. They must now file an official complaint against the prince. The blonde waves her hand as a sign that she will figure it out on her own. She forces the young man to raise the sword again or to defend himself with the power of the spirit of water. They will definitely finish this fight, no matter what the outcome. Everything ended, of course, with the beauty's victory, and she forced him to be polite to her. The maid asked if she was okay, and she of course nodded. Nothing terrible had happened. There was no point in winning, but it was strange that there were strange feelings inside, as if the princess was going to do something she does not believe, that she wanted to suppress another person and rise at his expense. The first thing that came running to the heroine was Ethan. As it is believed, he apologized for interrupting, but explained that he was very worried. He was told that the lady was injured, but she repeated that nothing happened to her. Although he managed to defeat Nereus, he is still the heir to the throne since he has strength of spirit. On the other hand, the blonde has not become the same as before, and this is good, but inside there is still uneasiness. At that time, no one cared about the empress, but then Bronte appeared asking her to be calm each time the lady said that everything was fine, but it was written on her face that this was not at all true. The guy notices the altered features that make him flinch a little, as if out of nowhere he asks if the lady likes playing the violin, and if so, he would like to play for her to impress her with his skills. Having finished his performance, the blonde receives multiple praises. The young gentleman is a real genius of the instrument which he wields with a confidence and ease that is noticeable. Of course, the Duke did not expect that everyone would like it so much. Dorothea cannot believe that he is playing professionally at such a young age. This is something that can be expected from his person. A voice is heard behind the door. It is easy to understand that Nereus is there calling the Princess. Ethan's expression changes in a second, because he knows that the person who offended his friend is nearby. The girl realized that she couldn't allow the two to meet so close and ruin all chances of winning. She hides her friend behind the curtain and asks Clara to open the door and ask what is needed. Ponce pushes the maid away. Because he came to talk to the princess, he asks if Dorothy is badly hurt. The young man asks for forgiveness for what happened earlier. He used too much force on a man who does not use spirit. This apology is not the best, it must be admitted. Ponce does not want to calm his pride, as the prince sees there are no serious injuries. So now he can breathe a sigh of relief and stop behaving like this. The boy's father personally invites Meleager to a dinner that he is organizing, and the Brontes will also be there. He has no desire to go, but he doesn't want to refuse the future king. After the conversation ends, the man finds a way to continue it. He has excellent hearing. Once he heard beautiful violin playing. Deciding to be honest, the blonde replies that she has no talent. The young man could have sworn that he had heard something, but he was told that it was all something stupid, more like an illusion. King Harka is already waiting for them, so they should hurry. Nereus must see them out, but before that he stops to ask why their escort did not go with them, but stands near the curtain. After the room became quiet, Ethan came out grinning at the table in the main living room. The king laughed, who could not believe that his son threatened the princess. This was not at all what he was allowed to do. The child was without strength of spirit since childhood. Like without arms and legs, one can only hope for the lady's understanding. If a girl knows how to handle strength, then she will definitely understand words were superfluous because she never had such strength. The man does not miss the opportunity to say how the lady is increasingly reminiscent of the former empress. The lady once saw her portrait. Alice was from the Fried family. That is why she looks so much like Theon. The person in the painting was liked for no particular reason. She was just cute and wonderful. It seemed that the baby's health had been restored. His Highness must have something to say about it since he was concerned. Although it has become better, it does not mean that something will change next time, even if there is an order from Kernan. The girl promises herself to refuse such events, bring a lot of inconveniences that make you feel more than uncomfortable. Thanksgiving came, and remembering the bags of food, the lady asks if they brought even one. Nothing has been heard from that boy for 2 months, and it seems something happened since he stopped doing his job. During the conversation, screams are heard coming from somewhere to the side. The knight grabs the boy, ordering him to get out, but he screams that the princess herself allowed him to come. The girl comes closer to deal with the problem, and only then remembers her communication, given once in the ring. She defeated Joey and invited him with her to the Star Castle. The boy took with him only a sack of potatoes, which turned out to be the most important thing for him. He asks for help because his father was in debt to the Lord. He was unable to pay the debt, and he and his brother were sent to work in the mine. That place was scary and dangerous. They would definitely die there if they did go, so Joy, of course, could not allow this to happen. Count Duncan had already mentioned that he needed children for underground work. Sending little children to such difficult classes is simply unfair. The lady promises that she will definitely help, but not his father, but only his brother, and only on one condition. The next day, the blonde handed the lord a suitcase with forms for paying off the debt of Mr. Gert from the village of Gom. The guy once lent 500, but with interest, the amount was 3,000 more than enough received. The remaining money in the suitcase will go to pay off the debts of the children who work in the mine. The lady will not allow those who are not even 15 years old to be involved in hard labor. Of course, the heroine behaves heroically, but it is worth remembering that this whole mess does not directly concern her, so she should think about it. The woman does not give an order, but only expresses her desire. The blonde understands how things are done in this place before her rebirth. She was criticized for passing a law prohibiting work until the age of 14. Many shouted that they didn't like it. Thanks to the hard work, the beggars had at least some money, but because of the ignorant empress, everyone would lose their job just as the dukes would lose their labor force. No matter how much money Melaner has, she won't be able to save everyone. The lady is no longer in charge and can't behave the way she wants. If the girl finds out that her word was broken, she will return back. The princess is once again doing everything she has planned just for the sake of her precious list. Joy does not understand what is being discussed. Only one should go there without the royal person. The girl still went with the knight to check everything. The area they ended up in turned out to be not just poor, but literally on the verge of destruction. Now it's clear why the boy has such an evil tongue. There's nothing but toxicity around. People are judging him with their eyes. They both have aristocratic features, but you have to hold on and go to the very end. The father should have already left. The house is empty. The blue-eyed girl is surprised that there is just a pile of boards there. She has never seen anything like it. A friend calls his brother, who is sitting in the very corner. The boy runs to the girl and begins to hug her when she promises that they will finally leave the terrible place. He is only 8 years old. He is still too young for any kind of work. Dad will stay where he is, but they will leave him because it is no longer possible to live like this. They need to change themselves. The baby greets the princess, who is going to take them with her. Screams are heard, which are quite loud. A man has arrived home and is shouting at Stefan, asking who he is, that he is standing in a house where some girl is. Joey is called to come over, but he doesn't move, only hugging his brother tighter. It's a shame that the old man sold his children. They will never work in the mine again, but will go with Melaner. Count Dukan had already informed him that he no longer needed the slugs, considering that they weren't that useful. If the girl was paid and was trying to steal children, she better not do it. The blonde doesn't want to listen to them throw mud at her any longer. She advises them to change their tone, but in order not to be nearby, she grabs her friends by the hands and leads them to the exit of the dilapidated house. Stefan did not allow the operation to be interrupted and gave the man a menacing look. Evening came. All four had already arrived at the Star Palace, where the children were dressed in new clothes. Obviously, the duo is glad that they were taken, and therefore now they can't help but behave in this way. The princess lowers her voice and says that they shouldn't forget about what's important, because she bought them so that they would work for her. Of course, there was no choice left, but they are not against working, helping their savior. The girl asks to follow her in another room. She will show and tell everything in detail. They walked into the main dining room and sat down at the table. The first thing the lady did was order food to be served to them too. Her eyes lit up when a beef tenderloin steak appeared, making you feel like you want to eat even more. From today onwards, guests have the right to eat fruits and more. All products are selected and will provide vitamins, royalty, and other nobility. Always adhere to table manners. This time is no exception. If the friends still want to serve the princess, they will need to learn all the rules of table etiquette, and more in a desperate situation. Joy asked Melaner for help. He was afraid that she could be the same as Count Dukan. The red-haired man was tormented by doubts until the very end. Even when he was already begging on his knees for help, he didn't want the children to be forced to do some kind of hard work. It turned out that the lady was more like a person. She was sweet and kind. The girl pointed to the table and asked if the beauty had tried the apple pie that was there. The beauty's eyes sparkled as she described the beautiful shine like a precious stone. The pastry was sweet, soft, and aromatic, and when he and Poe ate it, they literally choked on tears from how delicious it was. Of course, the guest was going to give the food to the princess later, but she also hoped that she would like it, and by the time she returned the debt, she would be old enough to buy the pie. The empress assures that she does not need to return anything, only if it is a gift. The time for fun is over. It is time to focus on the lessons that need to be learned. The princess shows how to use spoons and forks correctly, and most importantly, she explains it all in detail so that everyone understands it. In Joey's opinion, the new acquaintance is the kindest person in the whole wide world, and this is not only because she gave them some meat, but also because she saved them from their father, allowed them to stay on her estate, and gave them new clothes. The beauty doesn't yet know how to react to such statements she would like to understand, but it is beyond her capabilities. She is the worst person the world has ever seen, but only Her Highness knows about the past. If her friends knew all the details, they would definitely speak differently. It was time to finish the dinner, which had already lasted relatively long. The lady asked to move on to dessert, and then a wonderful pie appeared on the table, which was like a reward for her efforts. The redhead can't find the words to describe Her Majesty if Joy swears she will be kicked out, but she is outraged because she simply could not hold back her admiration. Sister Poe tries not to cry, but it's very difficult considering how much the Empress does for them. People who work for the imperial family must be clean and healthy. They need to be examined and bathed. This is how the duo stayed at the Millennium Palace. The girl writes in a letter that if you visit the castle, then it will be quite possible to meet them. She writes so formally that it becomes awkward. Theon understands that he must answer as soon as possible and even smiles thinking about what exactly he can write, but then his heart sank. His body suddenly fell. He did not understand what happened. The young gentleman decided to visit his girlfriend. He had not visited for a long time because some urgent matters constantly arose that required his attention. Clara smiles and is about to lead the Duke straight to Milano. Walking down the corridor, they hear some voices discussing a pie that can be saved for later. This is not at all like a princess, but not like servants either. Dorothea herself joins in from afar. Outraged, she will not leave rotting food that usually needs to be thrown away, and the cake has long since gone bad. There is no chance left. Bronte stands aside asking who they are, as it turns out the lady just recently brought them after saving them from their father, who sent them to work in the mine to pay off his huge debt. The blonde also wants to make friends, and even openly expresses his bright desire, which remained with him seeing the beauty the young man admires all the work that she did, which in fact was expected from such a pure soul. With his eyes sparkling and hiding his true intentions, the blonde hopes that his girlfriend won't mind if he gets closer to the kids. He needs new acquaintances. Entering the room, the Duke closes the door. The two stand with their mouths open. They, of course, know him because they saw him at the fencing competition. The princess saved them from debt, and so they can only be grateful. They gradually learn letters and history so that they can calmly read everything that is written. Getting an education is a privilege. Chuckling, the Duke makes such a face that it becomes uneasy. The guys do not even realize what a favor Her Majesty is showing them. No one else would have done that. Joy recalls the words that Milliner herself said in order to continue living and working in the castle. You need to learn the rules of etiquette and writing. There are already people for other work. It turns out that the rescued people are not doing anything useful, but just stuck around like a couple of parasites. They don't even know what it means. Pure mockery has begun. Ethan is simply saying that even if they were told that they didn't have to work in their place, he would look for work and not shamelessly sit back and enjoy all the benefits. Words are useless. You need to do something other than empty promises. Joy nods, although she still doesn't understand what she can do for the princess. She doesn't have much strength and what is at her disposal. The young man had an idea that he proposed for a good cause. The guys came to the lady showing a basket of berries. They wanted to do something, and so they brought goodies to show that they would continue to work hard. The heroine smiled until she noticed that Theon's handkerchief was in the basket. Lowering her voice, the blonde asks why it was necessary to put such an important thing on the bottom. The redhead washed the berries, and since water was dripping off them in order not to stain the basket, it was necessary to put something on the bottom. It was worth putting food on a tray or something else. The way they behaved was wrong, and therefore now, there will be problems. You should not treat other people's things so carelessly, and you can't enter the owner's rooms either. The girl is almost crying, assuring that she did not want to take the thing. The young gentleman said that if they bring berries, the lady will definitely like it. Ethan, standing behind, justifies everything by saying that they wanted to please the savior and he only gave advice. The blonde said it would be nice to put something down so the water wouldn't run off so much. The Duke was worried about the table getting dirty, but he didn't specify that he needed to take Theon's handkerchief. The princess looks at the two and asks them to leave the room for a moment. They wanted to say something but decided to obey. Turning around one last time, Joy notices a nasty smile on Bronte's face. As soon as the door closed, the lady slapped her friend. This time it is better not to justify yourself until the very end. It will not end in anything normal. Anyway, making sweet eyes, the young man asks why they are treating him like this. It is a pity, of course, that the heroine understood the truth only on the day when everything had already happened, but still they remained the same as before. It is impossible to believe that Melaner had previously wanted to change the outcome, trying to appear self-confident. Dorothea can't even handle herself before the rebirth appearing unexpectedly like a comet in the light. Ethan has developed a habit of throwing his things all over the hall at events. The noble ladies fell on their knees before the man, and he enjoyed every second of the moment, feeling superior, looking down and smiling, thanking them for the service rendered. Among them was a vile man who proudly insulted the nobility, but no one knew about him. One day, a lady picked up the handkerchief, and instead of returning it, she simply ran away. The princess was the first one who bothered to find out about the Duke's hobbies, and it was the moment of their meeting that marked the beginning of his fall. Standing aside, the heroine wondered why the boy was taking up his hobby again. The anger of the two harmoniously intertwined with each other, taking root in each other. The tyrant who ascended to the throne through treason and his right hand who guided him were an ideal couple. The two devils, having met without hesitation, decided to rule the world. The flower of evil gradually grew, causing others to shy away, and eventually blossomed. And finally, the girl received the crown she had been chasing all her adult life. The result of all the efforts made her laugh like crazy when the new empress saw Theon, she called him, but the man fell to his knees next to his former friend Raymond. The girl did not consider herself guilty. She just came and won. She did not want to die. Fried shouldn't have cried. His love finally came, who decided to bring him happiness and ascend the throne. The people rebelled. The king's killer cannot take control into his own hands, given that she does not have the strength of spirit. Dorothea was reviled at every corner, shouting that she was unworthy of becoming a queen. Theon came to his wife again, but this time he said that it seemed that she had completely lost her mind, doing something that was completely wrong. Holding out her hand completely covered in blood, the blonde calmly asks what exactly she should do. Oddly enough, Melaner was ready to do anything just for her husband, but he looked at her with eyes full of hatred. The woman was constantly jumping up after the death of her brother. The nightmares had gotten worse, and now normal sleep was something of a luxury. The lady heard Ethan enter the room. The ball was about to start, and it was worth preparing for it. The lady began to back down, wondering whether she should stay in her chambers. The people were completely angry. The Duke, it would seem, was not even embarrassed. Ignorance is no longer worth anything. This is not the same at all. Everyone is still discussing the murder of people who were close to His Majesty. The most terrible thing is that since that day, Fried has never looked at his wife. He must hate her. The Queen has everything, but when she thinks about Theon, she feels physically ill. Ethan constantly promised that he would be next to Her Majesty and would serve until his very last breath. The girl says that nothing needs to be done and is going to go change clothes. She is stopped by the news that her husband sent a letter to Julia again. This is happening again. Theon always changed when he received letters from Julia. His face lit up with joy, even in the darkest moments when it seemed that his heart was immersed in sadness. These letters brought with them a light that awakened warm feelings in him, a deep and precious love. The princess knew that he would never experience this towards her. She stood in the darkness wondering what she could give the guy more than his beloved. A storm of feelings raged inside, a desire to prove her importance. She was sure that she could fulfill any of his desires. At this time, Ethan had doubts about whether to intercept the letter from Duke Fried, and he heard a refusal that burst out instantly. The girl suffered reading each letter as if each symbol he wrote left a burn on her heart. But in this suffering, she found a solution. To give Theon what Julia could never do, all her thoughts came down to one thing: to give everything for his favor and conquer his heart. Dorothea gave the order without hesitation. Gather the best architects, craftsmen, gardeners, and use only the best materials. This estate should become the heritage of humanity, a symbol of her love for the Duke. She believed that one day he would look at her with the feeling that she so longed for this she had to try. Ethan stood before the Empress, his heart pounding but outwardly calm. Hearing his name, he bowed and asked to speak. He needed to arrange an event at the other end of the room. The wine flowed like a river. The guests happily discussed the greatness of the empire, at the head of which stood Empress Dorothea. The man knelt before the Empress, not daring to raise his eyes. His voice trembled as he said that with Raymond, this would not have happened. The woman only smirked, calling him a daredevil. Her cold laughter ran through the hall. Suddenly the man's voice became desperate. He cried out, calling out to Her Majesty because he saw a sword in front of him. What was said was supposed to be a compliment. The voice was cold and merciless, like a sentence that did not allow for any argument. She ordered the body to be thrown to the wild dogs immediately after the man was killed, without showing the slightest regret. Those who witnessed this scene froze in horror, their faces distorted with fear. No one dared to meet her gaze. The Empress looked around, her voice calm, but with a hint of mockery as she asked why the hall had suddenly become so quiet. Then, with an icy gaze, she demanded laughter. The assembled instantly took up her call, filling the hall with feigned mirth and praising the best ruler in all of history. Despite the universal praise of the main character, her heart remained empty. She built the most magnificent palace wanting to achieve Theon's attention, but he never came sad. Thoughts tormented her despite the shine of the crown, which seemed to be a symbol of victory but not love, which she thinks she will never see. The Empress sat in front of the mirror, letting her maid take care of her, but her thoughts were far away. She was thinking about what else she could do to win the attention of her own husband. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind. What is this terrible and ugly creature in the reflection? Is it really her? Lately, she had lost weight and began to look exhausted. The lady realized that all her beauty was contained only in her jewelry. A cold order escaped her lips to take off her earrings. The maid, confused, did not dare to carry out the order, but the repeated cry was full of anger and impatience, because in the end, they did not listen to her almost immediately. In a fit of rage, the woman ripped off the earrings, ignoring the pain blood dripping down her neck, her thoughts racing. Could she really not even cope with this? This was incredible. Just at that moment, the door swung open and Ethan ran into the room, his voice trembling with anxiety as he asked if the lady was okay. Her heart sank when she heard that Duke Fried had come to see her. Joy filled her mind, because she was sure that this was finally the very person she had been waiting for. Most in the world, a smile blossomed on her face, and she exclaimed that she had finally waited for him, not suspecting that he had not quite good intentions. The Duke asked, his voice tense, as he asked if the Empress had really taken away the de Levin family's title and banned them from entering the empire. Her smile faded for a moment as she realized he hadn't come for her, but the cold mask quickly returned. Yes, so what? The de Levin family had long supported the royal family and the Fried house, but despite this, innocent people were stripped of their title, and this was not what should have been done. The woman did not believe that Julia was still bothering anyone. Theon could only live in the palace, not thinking about anything. At this moment, the man, unable to bear it, cried out that the maiden meant a lot to him. His words were immediately interrupted. He received a slap in the face. Theon, kneeling, looks helplessly ahead. The girl has almost gone crazy, repeating that the man belongs only to her. Dorothea, with a trembling voice, asks why he continues to look at other women, not understanding why her words and love are not enough to keep his attention only on herself. The heroine hit the love of her life. Her hand turned red, reminding her of what happened just a few minutes ago for her. It was disgusting and dirty. The guy, unable to bear what was happening, ran away, trying to escape from the horror, but heard her desperate cry. "Don't go, please!" "He is not going to obey." Ethan stopped the heroine and calmly said that if she followed him now, the Duke's wounds would only become deeper. He suggested not to worry and wait, assuring that everything would work out as it should. Melenaer listened to his words in tears, trying to believe in the inevitability of Theon's return to her. This was the last hope, there was no other option. The beauty remembers how she gave her husband everything she could. She decorated the greenhouses with jewelry and creating splendor around him. She hoped that he would appreciate it as it deserved. everything went completely wrong, because the more she invested, the colder and more indifferent he became. Her heart skips a beat as the clerk comes closer, bowing his head respectfully. The blonde man says something important. His voice is cold and tense. The girl barely breathes when she hears the words about Julia, and her eyes widen in shock. The question, as if torn from her soul, sounds muffled. Is the girl really dead? The man sullenly reports that Julia was found in the Arban region. It seems she was attacked while walking unaccompanied. The empress thoughtfully recalls that Bronte recently took a vacation. Perhaps it was he who helped the girl and did it for the sake of his mistress to help her. Julia de Levin, whom the queen had hated for so long, was finally gone from her life. The thorn in her eye was gone. Satisfaction was sliding across her lips, as if a long-time dream had finally come true, but inside there were shadows of doubt, while Theon, whose eyes were bloodshot, asked in a barely audible voice if she still had feelings for him. The woman with the crown on her head looks up at her husband. She fell to her knees as soon as she was near him, her eyes full of devotion and passion. Her voice trembling, she whispers, "Ah, my dear, despite everything she confesses her feelings, it does not matter to her how angry or despises him because love remains unchanged." The attempts were pointless, but the girl tried to justify herself to the guy who suddenly accused her of killing de Levin. Fear was visible in her eyes, and her voice trembled with horror. She repeated that she never ordered to kill her, and did not even know where the Duchess was, hoping that someone would believe her words for the first time. They were true. The queen looks at her hands, her gaze stern because they were taken from the man's body. Theon warns that everyone must remember this moment, his voice filled with despair as he blames the girl for his own death, calling greed the cause of the fall. This should have been thought of in advance. Theon left his woman leaving only a dark trace of his departure in her memories. Only a vague image remained in her memory, and ahead was emptiness and pain from loss. His death appeared in the dreams of the empress, and when she woke up, she was haunted by the shadow of her lover not allowing her to forget what had happened. Milana recalls her past, bitterly realizing that her first and last love, her fiancé and husband, were the only things she did not have. After the loss, she lost the ability to deal with state affairs. Finally, her fate led to the inevitable end, which in principle was predicted. The woman in the crown, with an icy expression, hears the accusations. Before this, she thought only of her own good, forgetting about the state. Her eyes flash when the man talks about crimes, embezzlement of taxes, and the murder of innocents for which Dorothea will now be sentenced to death. The majestic king, recently appointed to his post, stands with a cold expression on his face, scepter in hand, and asks the question that no one can escape. "Do you have the last word?" The woman opposite is silent, her head down, her lips trembling, but not a single sound comes out. She is lost in her thoughts, trying to comprehend the inevitable. Ethan leans forward slightly, leaning on his staff, looking at his former mistress, kneeling before him, his voice cold and reserved, as he asks if she has a final word, as she remains silent, her head down as if weighed down by the words and feelings. She just needs to say, "Save me," to gain the life she desires. The man stood in front of her, his voice full of confidence and promise. He knew he could change everything if she just said those words. She hung her head, feeling the weight of guilt pressing on her shoulders. Her thoughts about Theon haunted her. She didn't want to live without him, even realizing her mistakes. The guy could never be brought back, so it was easier to give up. The character exclaims furiously, his eyes burning with anger and resentment when he addresses his interlocutor. He cannot understand how it was possible to sacrifice so much for the sake of one person, while the girl with her head down silently reflects on what she always wanted: to be with him no matter what. For her it has always been a cherished dream. With an expression of hopelessness in her eyes, the beauty says that she has lost as a villain, admitting her defeat. It seems that all her attempts have gone to waste, and now she feels how the remnants of her former ambitions and desires are leaving her. The words addressed to the guy sound like the last question. Does he want to become a saint, trying to wash away his sins? Ethan silently held out the gem, its shine sparkling in the rays of light as if personifying his determination. Dorothea understood what he had in his hands, but still turned away sharply. She sat with her back lost in her thoughts. The thing seemed like the last hope. But since the refusal was made, the man calmly said that the choice was made, her and him, as if closing their destinies. He looked at her with genuine pain in his eyes, and bitterness rang in his voice. "A woman is the cruelest person in the world," the hero whispered, not hiding the anger that had almost disappeared. The wind ruffled her hair. Tears glistened on her cheeks when she continued, "Their world will change precisely because of her character, and all the actions she had committed she will be called a tyrant as before." Dorothea stood on the edge of despair, feeling that time was lost. Thoughts that if she had known that it would end like this, she would have left a little earlier before Theon died. All that was left was the bitterness of the understanding that she was not loved. If it had ended earlier, no one would have suffered or died. Life lessons were enough already. The heroine slowly clenched her hands, remembering how she walked to the scaffold, how words broke off in her memory. Questions that had no answers pulsated in her head. The conversation with Ethan seemed distant and blurry like a dream. She understood how much pain she brought, but this realization came too late. In the end, they are very similar. Dorothy stood in silence, head down, staring into space. Her thoughts a storm. How much longer can she endure this doubt's gnaw at her heart? Should she stay with him or not? It would be best to leave, because if she stayed, her desires would again consume her completely. The prospect of becoming a dark version of herself, going the way of evil, does not give her peace. Ethan looked down, feeling a deep sense of guilt, and hugging the lady by the shoulders. He repeated only that it was all his fault. All the pain he caused did not give him peace. His words asked for forgiveness as if they could change something, but something did not let him go. There was fragility inside which was even a little unusual. The blonde looks at her interlocutor with anger, desperately trying to break free from his grip. She screams to let go. Her eyes are full of determination. The clash of emotions is growing. She no longer wants to be deceived by him. Resentment and pain fill her heart when she realizes all the betrayals that were before an apology can be heard, perhaps for the first time. The young man confesses to the jealousy that was eating him up from the inside. The Duke feels guilty, admits his mistakes and fears that he will lose the trust and friendship he so longed for. He is afraid of being expelled, revealing his most vulnerable feelings, realizing that loss may be inevitable. Lowering his head, the young man turns away. A tear slowly flowed down his cheek, leaving a wet trace. He quietly asked, not to be hated. His voice trembled from pain. He squeezed his hand tighter, feeling how it began to tremble again from fear, afraid that they would let it go. The boy does not retreat in these fingers is the last hope to hold on. These words sounded in her mind, penetrating into the deepest corners of her soul. She had been following his every step for so long, thought that she understood. But now, when everything became obvious, the realization came. She knew nothing about him. Ethan had always been a mystery to her, covered with a veil of unsolved secrets. The majestic towers of the palace rose against the bright blue sky, emphasizing the monumentality of the building. A calm atmosphere reigned inside. But the king continued to clarify. Was it possible to meet the representatives of Hark well? His interlocutor confidently answered that everything went smoothly, mentioning that they even told about Princess Dorothea. The king's confident question sounded authoritative. The ambassador from that country reported news about Princess Dorothea, noting how she helped during the epidemic and won the hearts of the people with her donations, some behind her back, calling her their savior or even a genius who is different from the rest. The young man looked thoughtfully at the palace gates. His gaze was directed into the distance, as if he was trying to unravel something invisible. He asks if his daughter has recovered from her illness. The ambassador is not sure, but at the competitions organized by the Duke, the lady was ready to challenge Prince Raymond himself and wanted to fight with him. The man looked at the letter with attention. Reading every word, there was a restrained concern in his voice when he said that he needed to tell his daughter to come and try to pass the entrance exams to epidemic. Behind this decision, there were tense expectations and uncertainty, but still it was a chance, an opportunity to prove something important and change fate. The man looked coldly at his interlocutor, lowering his eyes after mentioning the princess. He felt the weight of his words as if doubting their correctness. Princess Dorothea, despite her brilliant brain, did not receive a proper education. However, there was a note of irony in his voice. If she really is a genius, she should cope on her own no matter what. Looking at the young prince standing before him, he coldly remarks that the princess is either a genius or completely useless, his icy gaze sliding over her figure, conveying doubts about her abilities and the certainty that it would be better for her if she could not pass this test. The young man, thoughtfully examining the ruby on his hand, recalled how several years ago he witnessed one amazing moment. Then Princess Dorothea amazed everyone, having thoroughly studied the genealogical tree of the milliner family. He understood that a new test awaited them ahead, which would reveal the true abilities of the princess. The emperor lazily pours a glass of wine, thinking about the upcoming exam of the princess. His thoughts are full of skepticism. Will her intelligence be useful to the family, or will she only bring trouble? He understands that the exam scores will only show the level of her knowledge, but the real challenge is yet to come. He sat on a wooden bench, his hands tightly gripping the sword. The thoughts that he would never use it again had long since lost their power. How many years had passed since he was here? His gaze gloomily looking into the distance, and his thoughts returned to how the princess had grown. The first time the man saw the blonde, he was amazed. In the desert surrounded by endless sands, they never expected to find anyone alive. But her appearance in these vast spaces was a real miracle, as if someone took care that everything was okay with her. Stefan remembers the moment of their first meeting, a weak hand barely perceptible clutching at the straw of life. She did not recognize him then, but he still keeps this moment in his memory. Regret and sadness are mixed inside him, and something painful comes alive again in his heart. The knight recalled the moment when he first realized his role next to the princess. Her weak and thin hand, which he was afraid to press too hard, became for him a symbol of vulnerability and responsibility. It was this that made him dedicate his life to the protection that Dorothy clearly needed. One day, Milana approached him for the first time with a request to teach her. He could not hide his joy. Then, seeing her zeal and persistence in training, each sparring brought her closer to mastery, and with each new victory, he increasingly realized the joy that a real teacher experiences. He could not even explain the feeling that was hidden inside. The girl always seemed strong and unshakable, but even she had weak moments one day. She opened up and told him about her nightmare, about the fears that she carefully hid behind a mask of inaccessibility. This confession made her even more human and vulnerable in his eyes. Stefan realized that he was wrong. The blonde grew up surrounded by betrayal and pain all her life. Her tired eyes looked at the world as if the light had gone out in them. The loss of her mother, Empress Alice, became an indelible wound. She learned to live in the shadow of this tragedy, hardening her heart in a bloody fate deprived of love. Emperor Kernan was beside himself with grief. The knight sat in deep thought, holding his sword, as if searching for answers to his tormenting questions. He thought about how the princess still considered herself guilty, although she herself did not know the whole truth about her mother. The story was too terrible for her innocent ears to hear. The young man thought that it would be good to say something comforting to the lady, but he was afraid that his words might hurt her. The thought flashed through his mind about how easy it would be if he had the same gift of communication as someone else, and he smiled bitterly, realizing that he did not have such words. There was a rustling sound, and Joy came out of the bushes. They sat next to each other, resting after a long day. His hand was busy with the sword he had recently used. A question suddenly interrupted his thoughts. "How did you become an accompanying knight?" A voice sounded nearby, sighing. The hero looked at his interlocutor, ready to tell his story. The girl with short red hair thought out loud as she sat next to him. A spark of desire lit up her eyes as she asked the question of how to become a knight without being a noblewoman. Although her voice was calm, the words were filled with a desire to find a way to achieve her goal. Of course, the heroine looks intently at her interlocutor. Her eyes are burning with determination, with excitement in her voice. She declares that she wants to become a knight. Despite doubts, the impulse is passionate and sincere, reflecting her dream and unwavering faith in herself, because this will definitely work out. Joy's gaze is also unchanged despite her young age and timid tone. Picking up a sword, she expresses her desire to become a knight determined to change her fate. The thought that dying in battle with the enemy is better than slowly fading away only fuels her enthusiasm, such as she got a chance to repay the girl. Stefan first went to Dorothea. He suddenly started talking about training, as if he had been thinking about this issue for a long time. Joy's training did not cause him any doubts, but he saw a special path in her future, believing that her strength could become a significant advantage. He did not want the girl to get bored, and the decisiveness of his actions gave him confidence. The knight noticed the absence of the princess's usual training. He asked her in a reserved manner why she no longer practices fencing. Her gaze dropped. Her heart was full of doubts. She felt that she had betrayed the one who had always been there for her, helped and supported her in difficult times. She would like to say that this is not true, but it is not. The knight, looking at his acquaintance, asks her a question with sincere concern in his voice. This is already the second one because the first one was not answered. The girl with her head down still answers that she no longer wants to hold a sword. Her decision seems final because she does not strive to become a knight or a fencing teacher. Milana is becoming dangerously stronger. Dorothea could hardly contain her emotions. She understood that she had become too attached to the feeling of power when she held the sword in her hands. Every time the heroine entered the battle, she was overcome by a feeling of living force, and a thirst for victory flared up in her. But now it seemed wrong to her. The young man had the right to begin training Joy, but nothing more. The boy ran into the kitchen again. The chef's sudden cry knocked him out of his train of thought. The red-haired boy, looking up in fear, heard a sharp voice. The chef asked him to tell him if he suddenly got hungry, so that food would be set on the table and the young man would be fed. Poe didn't know at all how to explain that he hadn't come here for food at all. The words that could accurately express her feelings were drowned in her embarrassment. Her green eyes looked uncertainly but sincerely. The man, on the contrary, raised an eyebrow in surprise, but immediately decided to help, feeling something special in this right after he was told the truth. The character lies on the bed, pierced by the thought that the princess hates him. Regret and sadness are reflected in his golden eyes. He remembers the moment when he tried to meet her but was rejected. Every time this painful realization penetrates him, leaving a feeling of loss. He should have acted differently. The boy lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, his golden eyes glittering, reflecting his inner turmoil. He was convinced that the princess hated him after that incident. He repeatedly asked to meet her, but each time he was refused. These thoughts tormented him, causing feelings of alienation and loneliness. In the very heart of the magical garden, rare flowers bloom, opening their petals only at night. This moment turns the garden into a magical spectacle that attracts many people. People from all over the empire strive to see this beauty, since such flowers can no longer be found in other regions. A young man with shining golden eyes looks dreamily ahead. A thought flashes through his mind. If he gives the princess flowers, she will surely be happy. Flowers are always beautiful, and everyone loves beautiful things. A radiant smile appears on his face, reflecting hope. Ethan stops among the bushes, his gaze focused on the ground. He is annoyed that he did not take a servant with him, but then he realizes that he must complete this task himself. The princess's smile appears in his mind, and this strengthens his determination because he wants her to smile. Only because of him. Everything will be fine if he does everything perfectly. The young man walked along the path, his gaze searching every branch bush and shady place around. A sigh of relief escaped from his chest. Finally, he found them, flowers that bloom only at night, shimmered on the edge of the cliff, illuminating the sky in the last rays of the sunset. He had to climb there to get what he coveted. It would be difficult. The girl stood alone, her gaze directed at the floor. Despite Ethan's apologies, her heart continued to push him away. She remembered the thing Theon had given her, which had meant a lot to her. The question spinning in her head remained. Was it really so bad to want this little thing in her life? In any case, she would have to give up everything and not be greedy. The past would not return. The Bronte family maid timidly enters the hall, sheepishly apologizing for her sudden appearance. She knocked before going to the princess. Her face expresses concern. She is afraid that her words may be misunderstood, but her gaze desperately searches for an answer. Has Her Majesty met with Master Ethan? The girl in a gloomy nightgown stands by the window, her head bowed down, her thoughts focused on the fact that they still hadn't seen each other. Clara calmly says that the young man went to pick up flowers for his girlfriend, but after that, it seems no one saw him again. The princess looked at the maids with slight concern when one of them reported that Bronte had not returned yet. This brunette went to check if he was with the princess, but as it turned out, he had simply disappeared. A thought suddenly flashed through her head. What had he done? And the excitement gradually grew. Her thoughts were simply confused by everything that was happening. Ethan, with a smile on his face, holds a bouquet of white flowers. His eyes shine with joy. He is glad that he finally found what he was looking for. The hero proudly says, "There." Meanwhile, the girl in the cloak worried wanders in the darkness, wondering where the boy could have gone because nothing is visible around. Most likely the young man got lost. A few minutes later, the blonde found him sitting by the rock. The Duke is kneeling holding flowers and trying to rub his eyes with his hand, breathing heavily. Tension is visible on his face, but suddenly he notices the figure of the princess in front of him. His eyes widen in surprise, and he mutters in panic as if he does not believe his eyes. In the next frame, already frightened, he moves back, covering his face with his hand and asking not to come near him. Anxiety and fear are reflected in his every movement. He clearly did not expect to meet Dorothea here and now, especially in such a state. Wiping his face with his sleeve in agitation, he thinks that he looks dirty and unattractive. He doesn't want the princess to see him like this. He soon realizes that he wanted to give her the most beautiful gift, going through all the troubles just to please her. The girl looks at Ethan in surprise and realizes that he did all this for her, wondering if he really went through all this just to make her happy. The girl thought about her memories. Looking down, she understood that perhaps it was they that prevented her from looking forward. A soft smile and the magic of kindness helped her understand that everything was fine, and sincere words about the fact that something dirty and ugly did not bother her warmed his heart a little. His face would always be wonderful, no matter what. The Duke holds out a bouquet of white flowers. His face lights up with joy and relief. He finally found what he was looking for and proudly holds the flowers up. The princess holds out her hand to accept them, asking in surprise, "You wanted to give me these?" Ethan is confused, but smiles at her gratitude. 2 flowers end up in the couple's hair. Now they are even more beautiful. For the past few days, Poe and Joy had been avoiding the main character, which was strange every time their eyes met. The boys got scared and ran away, not daring to come closer. She didn't understand what was happening, but the expression of fear on their faces made her question. She wanted to talk more, but in the end, it was unclear how it would end. The girl looks at the two with a displeased expression on her face. The same thing happened again. It seems that the rude attitude hurt them that day. The incident with the handkerchief predetermined the following weeks. Even if it was done unconsciously, it was still terrible. Dorothy wants to apologize. It is not even clear what to do next, but the beauty decides that she will think about it later. She leaves the room and runs into those she was thinking about recently. Poe holds out a plate with something delicious. The pie smells wonderful, and it was made especially for the princess. She deserved this small, warm gesture. The boy stretches out his hands and turns to Dorothea, saying that he has prepared a gift for her. His sister stands next to him with a satisfied smile on her face, apparently proud of what they brought last time. The lady was very angry, so this time they brought something more meaningful. They took the ingredients from the kitchen. The cook even helped to make it better. The shining eyes make you understand that, of course, the duo is happy with their wonderful work. Of course, tears appear from the sweet moment. The girl did not expect that someone would take care of her so much. The red-haired one promised that she would treat her savior. She could not help but keep her promise, so she tried her best. The future empress carefully took a piece of pie in her hands, surprised at how quickly she received it. She did not expect such a gift, so soon her thoughts were mixed, pleasant surprise and slight uncertainty. How soon should it happen? Praise would come a little later. The princess slowly took a bite of the pie, thinking about her past experiences before. No matter how delicious the food was, it could not impress her. Nothing caught her attention, but now something about the pastry gave her a new feeling, making her think about a change. Her gaze was focused on the food prepared with such care and warmth. She felt this warm care knowing that those who cooked for her were thinking about her. Bright feelings were warming in her soul. When she made the first piece of pie, a barely noticeable smile appeared on her lips. It was delicious, completely immersed in her thoughts and feelings of gratitude. Milana stood in confusion, hearing the greeting. The servant, with slight excitement, said, "Good morning," reminding her of the importance of the moment she had seen it even earlier. As a man had arrived from her father's palace, the man reported a message from His Majesty. The woman, even more surprised, squeezed her hand, waiting for the news she was about to hear. The princess looks at the man in the dark uniform who is giving her the order with restraint but inner excitement. As it turned out, the king demands that his daughter return to the palace after completing the treatment. This was unexpected, and her thoughts are instantly seized by panic. Why is he in such a hurry? Her heart pounds when she remembers that perhaps she is just a decoration in the plans. It does not mean anything. Lost in her thoughts, the heroine stands there thinking about how the emperor only used her when he needed her. Her past life was terrible. She felt tired of it all. Her attention is drawn back to the people who are always by her side, reminding her that she is not alone. However, they all live in the Star Palace, not on an island. Dorothea stood in the spacious hall, her head slightly lowered, when the voice of the man in front of her informed her that she would remain in the Star Palace. Until further notice, the words sounded neutral, but inside there was a firm decision growing. She would no longer be an obedient puppet as before. The time had come to change fate. Running up from behind, the prince grabs the boy by the shoulders and smiles, but he pushes him away. The young man with blue eyes stands in front of his comrade and asks worriedly if everything is okay. Apologizing for scaring him, in response, he hears a reproach that he was not in history class. Today asks if he is sick, then another young man notices Theon's trembling hands, showing his concern. The friend tries to make excuses, but in the end, he says that he needs to leave because Julia appeared in the distance. They have their own important conversation that cannot be put aside. The door closed, the emptiness swallowed everyone around, and Ray was left all alone. He sadly lowers his eyes to the floor. There is still hope that Fried will tell him what is happening in the end. He does not look like he is happy. Milana is ready to wait until the end. This morning a bird died. The young man looks even more tired than usual, and all because of this. The hero woke up early and decided to take a walk, but the bird died right before his eyes, making him realize that it was the fault of the forces. At some point, strange signs began to appear, and it was possible to briefly turn on the light in the room. The power of silence, darkness, and death is the spirit of darkness, but it has not appeared for several hundred years, and the Fried family who entered into a contract. The man is afraid that someone will get hurt, and Delavigne tries to calm him down as best she can. The girl has already sent a letter to the Archduchy. Now all that remains is to wait until the answer finally arrives, which will clarify the situation. The only thing that is not clear is why you can't be honest with Ray, who handles the light and can help, the brunette asked, but the friend communicated with the spirit from the very beginning, and not like Fried that the communication seemed one-sided. To control, you need to be friendly, and Fried himself is not like that at all. He cannot be classified in that category. There is no longer any desire to get into any trouble. They will just wait for an answer, and then they will sort everything out. There will be no problems. Come to think of it, he never got to answer the letter. The boy wants to regain control of the power before they meet. The blonde is angry since the emperor can do whatever he wants. He shouldn't put so much pressure on others. Clara came in to deliver a letter that came from Ray or from someone else this time. It was not from her brother. In her heart, the heroine hoped that a response had arrived from Theon, but in reality it was simply an invitation from Countess Ducan to the salon. The heroine throws aside the unnecessary. She shouldn't have even worried so much because it didn't lead to anything good. The Duke of Bronte remembers how the princess, as soon as she arrived for the first time, began to look for the boy. Lately, the beauty has been refusing all meetings, but she is constantly with Ethan, and when he disappeared, she personally went to the mountains to look for him. Milana must have liked the young man. It's hard to find anyone who wouldn't like the handsome young man. In any case, the story of the boy's birth is dubious. The scandal should not involve the princess, but something may come of it. Even though the lady was thrown out of the palace, Dorothea is still second in line to the throne, so that's a good chance. The man asked to call his wife, but she never came, and he was forced to go down to her chambers himself. The blonde noticed that Ethan and Dorothy had become friends recently, and he could be introduced to high society. The woman flares up with anger. She treated the young man well, but to imagine someone who was born from a girl from a bar is beyond her strength. Bronte is not happy with anything locking her son in a room for the rest of his life. Is also not the best option. He is already quite big. The Duchess will be ashamed to even raise her face and take a child that her husband conceived with another woman. That is the most terrible thing. Ethan is a kind and good boy, but Bronte will probably never love him. It is beyond her strength. There was a blonde guy standing behind the door the whole time who, having heard everything, ran to his room in tears. Lowering his head, the young man asks why they are ashamed of him. A couple should not quarrel over him and constantly say different things. It seems the whole reason is that the hero did not enter epidemic. The guy wanted to follow Jonathan there when he was only 8. The wife took pity and took the little boy to the examination center, but an accident occurred on the way there, and the young man never got there. They were fighting over something else, all because Ethan's biological mother is a commoner from the street. The Duke sincerely promises that he will no longer hide the young man, and together they will even be able to visit Duncan's salon. The man made a mistake, but there is no need to take it to heart at that event. The child is introduced as an official son. A smile spreads across his face. The blonde understands everything and understands that they care about him. The holiday has begun from which one initially wanted to run away, preferably as far as possible. The woman feels awkward. Of course Bronte came and even introduced his son. It seems he will make his debut today. The last time this happened was after the death of the first son. Until now, all they did was hide the guy in the mansion. The Duke's opinion has obviously changed, although he is not going to admit it. It is time for him to learn how to behave in society. Smiling, the princess asks him to accept her congratulations. It is a really important day. He was worried that there would be many strangers around, but he is happy that Dorothy is here. Before the rebirth, the heroine could not imagine such an outcome. It was something like an oddity. He would soon get used to it. The reception is about to begin and the two need to leave, but before that, the young man carefully kisses his girlfriend's hand. People around started whispering. Almost immediately they heard that Bronte had completely lost his fear since he brought an illegitimate child. One way or another, soon everyone would want to get closer to the guy. Ethan's influence on society was truly great. Perhaps in this life everything will be different and the young man will be happy. The concert should begin, but the pianist was injured and did not show up. The woman is worried everyone present learned this as a hobby. No one will help her, that is already clear. The hero decided to intervene. If Madame does not mind, he would like to try himself on stage since he has skills. Realizing that this can be taken advantage of, the lady says that one must play a certain song, even if it is difficult. Fortunately, the young man practices the musical composition he was assigned every day, and he has many skills. The princess walks around the hall wondering where Ethan is, and then when the music starts, she realizes that he is on stage. The song sounds too beautiful. It seems to fill the entire space, which pleases the people around. The guy is too hungry for power, so he is doomed with Dorothy. No matter how much she wanted a different outcome, nothing happened. The performance is over, everyone claps, and the performer himself waves to his girlfriend standing near the stage. It became much quieter on the balcony, which suited the girl, but after a few minutes, aristocrats gathered below, discussing the couple they had formed. Blue-Eyed is angry again. She herself does not understand why she cannot let go of gossip that they do not care about at all. Ethan appeared from behind, which even scared Milena a little. He also heard people saying that they looked good together. No one knows that the duo are like two geniuses who are not destined to shine a harmonious duet that only gets into trouble. The princess likes the girl, but it is obvious that she does not experience the same feelings. She behaves cruelly. The girls under the balcony begin to move on to a very personal topic. If a person cannot possess spirit, he has no right to be millionaire. The girl is sad they speak the truth and nothing can be done. It is better this way than to be known as a terrible tyrant. Ethan, standing above, accidentally threw a glass of juice and spilled it on the aristocrat's head. Of course, it was on purpose, but he apologized. The Uber Empire will not fall just because one member of the emperor's family fails to re-establish contact. The women apologize, they pretend that they did not insult, but on the contrary, they pitied the princess. She deserved better. The heroine herself is neither blind nor deaf. She knows what is happening around her and knows how people literally hate her. There is no need to worry about the lady. Milliner is not so unhappy that she will be killed by her grief. The only thing the blonde wants is to return to the Castle of Stars, where those who love and appreciate her existence are waiting for her. His Majesty the Emperor has just arrived. The servants are asking everyone to line up when the door opens. Princess Dorothy is the king's subordinate, so she must do as she is told. She has already recovered her health and should no longer be in this place. According to the imperial order, Milliner is required to immediately return to the island and be with her family. The lady has refused a long time ago. She does not believe that a man can be so stubborn. If she refuses again, they will take her for the one who arranged the betrayal. The carriage is ready. No one will wait, and they will go back right now. The emperor does not care at all how things are. The girl asks for at least time to get ready. His Majesty asked to bring his daughter without delay. The servant prepared everything necessary for the trip, if that's what we're talking about. He knew from the start how everything would go. The girl understood and asked for time only to say goodbye to the people she loved. She lived in the castle for several years. There were kind souls nearby. The blonde remembers Joy and Poe. If they are left, they will probably end up with their father again, sitting down at the table. The heroine is going to write a letter. Ethan volunteered to be the one to deliver all the notes to the Star Palace. The blonde asks not to worry because if he promised, he will definitely fulfill what is really important for them in this regard. Letter number 1 will go to Clara. Of course, the man congratulates the princess on her return to Lampas. They will definitely meet again whether the blue-eyed girl wants it or not. Their destinies have long been intertwined, like thorn bushes. For some reason, the hero remembers that promise to meet at the debut, being partners for each other. Until then, the princess will take care of herself and hopes that the same will happen to Ethan. The time has passed to leave. For the last time, the young man grabs the girl and presses her closer to himself. They will see each other again, but when exactly is not clear. Raymond thinks about Theon. The man does not hear when his friend speaks, as if he is deep in thought, and began to talk more often with Julia. The boy thought that the couple liked each other, but in fact the spirit is getting stronger every day. Fried is afraid that he might do something or hurt someone. As he walks out into the corridor, the young man freezes because there is a brunette kneeling there. The eyes rise and look back at the friend. He complains that he cannot cope with the spirit. He is getting worse. The blonde had already arrived at the place. She had not been in the castle for a very long time since then. Nothing had changed. Everything remained exactly the same as before. Kernan made his daughter wait, but finally they talk. She came home because she recovered. It's normal. There was never a corner for the princess in this place. The maiden was always kept separately. No one looked for her. Despite everything, the lady is still a milliner, and it was this family that provided her with everything she needed. The princess is obliged to live in her palace because she does not have even a penny without the help of her father. Blue-eyed orders to take the exam at epistemy. He heard that the girl is smart. The messenger of Hark also praised her. In the past, Dorothea would have been happy and tried her best, but now she refuses. The man did not give a choice. He gave the order, and there is only a month to prepare. A tutor will be assigned. Turning away, the lady still agrees, but she does not need to take the teacher for herself, as always. It is hard to believe that a past dream has come true. In that life, the lady would have passed the exam with her eyes closed because she was in despair. Almost immediately, Dorothy's brother, who missed her very much, came to her aid. The girl had finally returned, and one could only be glad about that. The guy handed over a gift of roses, but since his sister doesn't like plucked flowers, he will come up with something better. Blue-eyed heard about the order with the academy. They will study together, and then return back home. Dorothy will definitely pass the test because she is the smartest. She does not want to listen to anything anymore. Ray must go do something. The young man has not seen his sister for a long time. There is nothing more important than this. He does not understand that he needs to try hard to become an emperor. Considering that the princess was not pleased with the heir's letters when she was in the palace, Stefan is happy for them. Clara is worried about why the girl was sent for, so suddenly all the books need to be collected as well as clothes. It's too difficult. Poe starts to cry. He doesn't know what will happen to them, but going back home won't be the best solution. Ethan arrived at the estate where Her Majesty was no longer present. He had a mission from a friend. It could not be postponed. A letter has arrived from the princess. She wants her wards to go to Lampes with her. The guy smiles but holds back his anger. The young man doesn't need anything else. He just came to deliver a letter. The duo run out after the gentleman to make amends for the latest incident. Lowering his voice, the man says that they are just lucky. Throwing a shadow on the princess's face is the worst thing Poe stopped. He didn't believe that they were really angry with them. Exactly. A month passed. The girl passed the exam at epidemic, and now the papers with the results are lying in front of her father. In the entire history of the admissions process, there have never been such low results. The beauty received only 0 points. His Majesty told her to think about the prestige of the family, but she did not take the words at all, as she should have. Besides the king, the young man represents his father, but in reality, he never cared. The lady's birthday was never celebrated. The death of the wife was more important than the daughter who suffered. The man arranged holidays for his son, but Dorothy did not give even one gift. Nothing changed. It's sad, but every time the heroine wanted to be looked at, she is alive and also needed attention. That day, Kernan probably wished that the girl would die instead of his beloved, and it was probably the same now. Shouts to stop, do not change anything. The heroine presses until the end, asking if the guy wanted his daughter to never return on the day she was kidnapped. Unable to bear it, the blonde slaps her. His face changes. It would have been better if he had remained indifferent until the very end. I still have memories in my head of His Majesty's words after the kidnapping. His 9-year-old daughter was kidnapped, and he didn't even come to visit her. This shows his personality. There would be no need to call the girl by her last name anymore. She had never felt the way she should, so now it had lost its meaning. After that, the lady left. It would be better for everyone. The man would threaten Milliner until the very end. He would have to refuse. In the end, the princess became a good person. Stefan met her in the corridor. He asked if everything was okay. With tears on her face flowing down her cheeks, choking the beauty, asks to return to the Star Palace. She wants to leave the terrible place. The blonde is hugged tightly. She wants to disappear from the world and does not understand why she has to go through all the horrors. Her face was all swollen simply from the huge amount of tears that were shed, and she was ashamed of it. The girl will return back, but no one will even notice her facial expression. She sincerely thanks the knight for constantly staying with her. It was now in the corridor that the meeting with Theon took place, turning away so that her scarlet cheek could not be seen. The girl muttered something. For some reason, it always turns out to show Fried something he shouldn't see, which is not at all how stories should end. The brunette noticed the wound and handed over some ointment. He often gets injured during fencing training, so he carries a jar with him. The heroine still has things to do, so they will see each other some other time, but definitely not now. The expression on her face and the stain showed that someone had hit the lady, and she should have stopped and asked, but then the spirit appeared again. It's strange that after Fried gave the medicine, Ethan's head is still occupied. They are in the same position. The girl suggests that she could write to him to talk simply as if he were a close friend she knows. The lady decides to include a bookmark in the letter made from the flowers that the boy gave her. He will like it. Now the blonde doesn't know what to write. She lives alone in the palace, and even the last name Milliner doesn't matter now. The young man himself is worried. He hopes that everything is okay with the lady, but he can only guess because they have no connection. I would like to go to Lampes like the others, but alas, this will not happen. I want to believe that the girl is happy. Kernan thinks about what his daughter meant. A normal person would not want their own blood to die from kidnappers. The truth is that if it had been possible to save his wife that day, the emperor would not have hesitated to leave Dorothy. The young man tried not to give the child affection, and even if he had tried, he would not have succeeded. When the man looks at his daughter, he sees in her only the dying Alice. A few years later, the child he met in the garden was exactly like the empress. For a moment, the hero regretted that he had never given the girl due attention, but she still did not know how to summon a spirit. Anger manifested itself through the body the child that Alice gave life to before her death turned out to be defective. If his wife had been alive, everything would have turned out completely differently. The hero knows that everything that is happening is only his fault. The servant suggests that from now on he should devote more time to the beauty. The fact that the princess belongs to the dynasty cannot be denied. Raymond came running to complain to his friend because, as it turned out, his sister had failed the exam at epidemic. The girl is very smart. She chose the wrong one in each option, which means that she decided everything. Now it became clear that Dorothy was still as always a genius, and this made him smile. Surely the blonde loves her brother, but there is another reason. She accepted the flowers, which means she already considers him someone important. Theon doesn't want to meet the lady. It's better to leave her completely alone now because it will help her stay calm. Switching to another topic, the friend asks how the young man has been feeling lately. His spirit seems to have calmed down. It seems that it is possible to subdue the force even if sometimes it gets out of control. Now, Fried is not as dangerous as people might think, but in this way, it seems like he can harm those around him. The more a guy suppresses the spirit, the more life energy he absorbs in this regard. Everything is really bad. The prince got all the books that contained information. The first edition was so ancient that it had to be stolen. Melaner created the sun at the request of the king of the spirits of light in the same way. Fried, having made a pact with the king of the spirits of darkness, created the night escaping from the scorching sun. Light and darkness were one in the beginning. The pages say that the families balanced each other's powers doing it right. It turns out that the prince can help his friend, and now they will try to figure out how to do it. The spirit of light must counteract the power of darkness that engulfs the body. The spirit must purify. Joy and Poe's move took longer, so when evening came, the trio went to the castle where they were already awaited. As Clara walked inside, she tripped and almost fell, but Sir Stefan caught her, causing her to blush a little. Of course they had not seen each other for a long time, and the meeting was truly joyful, but at the same time awkward. The princess appeared at the threshold, not letting her speak. The lady asks what happened to the cheek. It wasn't about returning to the Star Palace, but about the people who became family cared for and respected. Everything is fine now. They even applied medicine to the sore spot. After kind words, they all start hugging. It's good that Lampus has dear people, but being near Kernan is becoming difficult. The palace budget has become higher, as if they are trying to lure the Princess Poe, and Joy have already changed their clothes. They are now servants. Now the duo will be staying at Her Majesty's estate, but they are strictly forbidden from visiting others. Dorothy asks to be careful to stay alive. The prince who entered laughs. The sister exaggerates everything. After returning, the lady locked herself in and never came out again, so she and Theon came only occasionally. The distance between brother and sister has shortened, but if he doesn't come like that, everything will go back to normal. Fried comes up and says that his friend looks better than before. As usual, he is very kind. Looking at the guy, the girl felt how the difficult emotions subsided. She finally came to terms with her fate. They would not be together. The prince, as usual, intervened in the conversation and interrupted the thoughts, too. He was glad that the girl was with him, because before this, it had been unusually boring. The first thing the lady explains is that the children who came with her are her new acquaintances. They are scared because they are facing the heir of Ubra. The duo are too cute and funny. Smiling, the guy asks to tell him a story about the time when they were in the Star Palace. Ray takes things easy and is definitely not suited to the position he holds. Perhaps this is normal, but the lady always envied the hero's light, thanks to which everyone loved him. Several years passed, and now Dorothy is 16. A maid runs to her. Something happened to Clara. The brunette doesn't feel bad, but it turns out that her father died. She asks for a few days off. Unable to bear it, the woman starts to cry. It's normal when you feel bad. Everything will definitely be okay. If the princess had known, she would have given him a vacation long ago. Clara thanks him. She is lucky to be next to such a kind person. Although they have known the lady for a long time, nothing is known about her family. Dorothea does not deserve to be called kind. Remembering the past, the lady brushes it off. She will never understand Clara's sadness because of their differences. After her friend leaves, the blonde asks to send someone to help her and also a wreath in her name. Only aristocrats can send wreaths on behalf of the imperial family. This is against the rules. For someone who has dedicated more time than anyone else in this life, or for someone who has been there, sending words of regret is okay. The woman doesn't care about any of the rules, and she's even planning to go to her tomorrow, despite the fact that the house is in a commoner's area. The brunette looks at the list of things that need to be done. Fortunately, there are not so many guests. Opening the door after someone knocked, the heroine freezes because she sees a knight in front of her. Stefan arrived to help. That's all he needed. For now, he handed over the wreath on behalf of the princess. Rumors about the wreath sent by Dorothea flew around. Everyone thought that the lady had achieved success, and this was already official. All words were unacceptable. Thanks to the brunette coming to the rescue, they coped with everything. There is nothing more to dream about. All that remains is to hope for the best. Clara realizes that they were worried about her. She was distracted because someone reported the imperial carriage outside the house. Dorothea couldn't help but come. She apologizes for being so late, but she didn't want to make a fuss. Choking with tears, the maiden timidly asks how she can repay the kindness. Nothing is needed from her, only that she be okay. Sharply hugging her mistress, the maid promises that she will always be there. She doesn't care what happens next as long as they are all together. After the funeral, the girl led the blonde into the house. She was sorry, but there was only regular tea. Diva knows little about Clara, so she doesn't interfere. As it turns out, she has an older brother. The man is not in a position to receive guests. Now the girl cannot understand this. It is too strange. There is still Anton in the room, the heroine's brother, who did not immediately recognize the princess, for which he apologizes. The brunette heard what they were talking about. He doesn't know how to express his sincere gratitude. Clara once took care of her mistress, thereby making her feel needed. A woman is always there in good and bad moments. She is the one who loves a girl and will never judge her. At first, it was hard to believe that someone with a blood relationship would care so much about someone else. It was considered unrealistic. But the heroine proved otherwise. After the words, the friend decided to make more tea, staying with Anton. The girl hears gratitude. The brunette thanks him for his love for Clara. She deserves the best. The young man himself can do nothing. He only earns money for food by sewing. Unfortunately, labor is not valued. People do not buy things made by cripples, believing that they leave scars. The maid took care of her whole family and carried this burden. She wanted to do many things, but her brother constantly clings to her. Everyone lives such a hard life that they don't show that the heroine didn't even see anything. Nobody needs people like Anton, considering that there are plenty of healthy people around who are much better. The lady was so tired that she went to sit outside and was disturbed by Sir Knight, who also came out. Lowering her head, she admits that she didn't want to introduce them to her brother. All they did was make fun of him. The brunette was afraid of being judged, but Dorothy dispelled all that when she called Clara family. The mistress is wonderful, but now the maid is consumed with guilt for the fact that she seemed to have lied to an important person without even knowing it. Stefan hugs his friend. It was hard for her, but now she is not alone. Everything was done right. There is no need to regret it. Dorothea met a couple near the entrance and raised an eyebrow, thinking that they were talking. In any case, it was time for her to go home. The heroine will be busy for a while, so if anything happens, it's better to contact Stefan for now. She needs to do something. The first thing that was created was a plan for a center to support the disabled. The lady was blind and did not notice the obvious problem. If people like Anton can stand on their feet, everything will be better for them. The lady just wants to help. It would be good if there was support for medical expenses. It would also be useful for doctors. People who are similar to each other can communicate in a community, whereas now they are alone. This is another idea. The plan has already been drawn up, all the details have been written down, but most importantly, it is not clear whether it will be possible to obtain approval from Kernan. Any major work undertaken by the Milleners must receive the approval of the imperial house. In fact, the empress had been thinking about an institution similar to the new one even before her rebirth. None of the subjects approved of the idea. It was considered a waste of time and resources. The aristocrats will again want the princess to invest in something that benefits her. Nothing else will do. My father's words hurt me to the last. He said that disabled people are of no use. There is no point in them. Everyone in their own situation tries and does everything possible. It's a pity that Kernan doesn't understand this. If the lady had the power, she would have forced him to agree, but the man threw the papers on the floor and again nothing happened. The room felt like crying. But then out of nowhere, Raymond appeared, and what he read seemed good. The boy knocked before entering, but it seemed his sister was so busy that she didn't even hear. After a while, the prince exclaimed, the plan was amazing, and Dorothy, being a bright head, came up with everything herself. The blonde knows that even Ray's approval won't help. She needs a word from His Majesty the Emperor. Of course, the blue-eyed one will not give up so easily. He would like to at least try to convince the Emperor that way everything will work out. Dorothy failed last time, but perhaps if the heir asks, she will succeed. It is worth taking the risk for the sake of Clara and Anton. The young man himself will do everything just to please his sister. The guy had one condition. The lady had to tell him that she loved him and hug him at least once. After the refusal, he almost became hysterical. The girl almost never hugs him, which makes him a little sad. From a very early age, the lady did not love anyone. She did not want to be touched at all. The princess remembers that when she was reborn, she hated her brother and did not like any manifestations of love. Brushing it off so as not to delve into the past, the blonde says that a newborn baby doesn't like that. It turned out that the young man also remembers other moments when at the coronation ceremony he was also not hugged, but only congratulated. The barrier that was being built all this time was there for a reason, and now Ray wants to get around it. The relationship has become closer and more understanding. It's hard to believe that everything will change even more very soon. Even though the brother has grown up, his tricks remain the same. First, he will fulfill the condition, then the reward. Dorothy is sweet, and she has opened up much more than before now, at least. She is making contact. The baby's first memory was the face of his mother lying in a coffin, and his father looking at her with eyes full of pain. Instead of Alice, a charming little girl came into this world. He did not want to lose her and could not. The only promise the mother makes is to protect Milliner even if things aren't going well yet, but that can be fixed. Kernan clearly didn't react in the best way. A support center for the disabled didn't seem like a good idea to him. For Ray, it was something important, but for the Emperor, it was a waste. Before acting, the prince must think about loss and profit. The only thing that matters is the revival of the empire. It is more valuable for the kingdom to support those in need than merchants who live in abundance. This is a completely logical conclusion to the variation. In the revival of people, there is a revival of cities. Without inhabitants, there will be no sense. The budget will be enough to provide flowers in the castle, which are changed every day, and he and Dorothea will take care of everything else. The girl prepared her brother and asked him to come with her now everything fell into place. Milliner thinks about the girl, but she does not respond in kind. His Majesty did not ask for wishes. The young man tries to defend himself. Kernan didn't say anything, but his face showed anger. The Emperor wasn't obliged to ask some girl's wishes. It is harder to bear such a famous name than it seems if, like the son of the Empire, you only give people warm light. They will instantly become lazy. His Majesty doesn't understand anything. Dorothy's plan is completely different. She is trying to create a place where no one is left out. Their family has power, authority, and money, and it is this trinity that has the ability to help many. Sister knew and made a plan. The worst thing is to sit back and do nothing knowing that you can do something. Putting a heavy hand on his son's shoulder, the blonde shocks him with the truth. The Empire has long been in crisis. Raymond himself does not suspect what it means for Milliner not to control the spirit. For Dorothea, it is a catastrophe. The imperial family's authority, which had fallen because of an incompetent girl, would fall even lower once they launched the project. There are tears in the guy's eyes. His sister is not incapable. For some reason, she is hated more than anyone else. It's unfair. Others cannot even dream of such great powers. We are talking about the Frieds. Their family depends on the Emperor. The Duke's family still only retains power because of their spirit status, and they are also generally useless. Everything should be a little better, but all that remains is to look at Dorothea. She is a mistake of the family. By further tarnishing the family name, the prince will force the allies to abandon him, leaving the empire alone. He stands his ground to the end. Disabled people are also Uber residents. There is no point in weighing the value of a heart on the scales. The door closed. The conversation seemed to be over. If they rely only on their strength, their family could not be worse. The young man hesitated. He didn't know how to say that he was refused, but still, he lowered his head and did everything. Dorothy shouldn't give up. They can just do the job, and the heir will take responsibility. Besides, the lady mentioned the lack of budget. She can take her brother's part and get more. The young man laughs. They still want to kick him out because of his status. There is no point in bragging considering the man's attitude towards his daughter. Dorothy suddenly grabs the collar of her interlocutor. She does not understand why he is doing all this. It's not a deal, it's just a desire for Dorothy to finally reveal her abilities. Raymond thinks that she really is the most wonderful person he knows. There's no changing that. A voice in his head whispers that the words are not true. He does not know the bloody tyrant's past. The young man laughs and apologizes for perhaps expressing himself incorrectly. He doesn't really know his sister and doesn't even count on it. Only Melaner should laugh and the hero should be angry. Ray should not continue to be good. It turned out that the guy didn't hate the lady, but she didn't think so. The heroine herself wanted to kill him by stabbing him in the back. Finally, he had to confess. Now it was only a matter of time before Ray turned away, just like Kernan and all the aristocrats. What is touching is that for the first time the girl was honest. She does not hate but regrets her feelings. The young man is a little happy. The sister considers herself bad because of envy, while in reality she experiences different feelings. Truly bad people don't feel guilty under any circumstances, unfortunately, but it's true. Maybe Dorothy wasn't evil before she died. She's doing great and will be fine. Let the heroine be a bad person. She wants to be forgiven for her mistakes. They should be forgotten after the atonement. It will become better. From the very morning, the guy was literally beaming. His friends even started asking what had happened. The blonde is so happy that everything was resolved with Dorothy, and they also decided to work on a project together. Together they will build a support center where they will help people with physical disabilities. There are many soldiers in the country who also left service due to injuries, and they will also receive assistance. Of course, at the most inopportune moment Nereus came in, he heard everything and began to mock. Smiling, the blonde finds it difficult to understand whether this sounds like an insult coming from his lips or something more. Investing in disabled people is a terrible idea. They will not give you any return. Ray is not fit to be the heir. He can barely cope with his studies, and he also asks for money for all sorts of meaningless nonsense. It's nice that Prince Haru cares about others like he does his own country, but it doesn't really concern him anyway. It won't be long before the empire collapses, but it's a pity because Dorothy has a wonderful face, but she has no skills at all. It won't help the future. With the birth of the child, the emperor's family fell into decline. It is true, but it is also known that Nereus possessing water still lost to the man who was the enemy. Perhaps Hark will fall apart even faster than Ubera. It already looks more like a well-known fact. One of them will die first. Wasting time on other people's mistakes is not the best thing to do. You should watch yourself. Those people are no worse than others, and the problems are only with those who have too narrow a mindset which prevents them from living. Despite the fact that they are a little different, they still dream of something special. Dorothea clearly explained what she wanted to do and what exactly it would bring them. Or rather, what advantages the girl wanted to improve the performance. This will not happen with the snap of a finger. She will have to go to the end, doing it persistently. The guy had an idea, even if its generation took time, which in the end did not even exist. A year passed, and finally the duo finished creating a support center for the disabled. A lot of effort was put into it. There were many ups and downs, but with the joint efforts of Anton and others, everything worked out. Dorothy has already arrived, but there are more applicants than expected. Additional help will be needed from whoever possible. It all happened thanks to the heir. The day the young man brought the girl to the library, he showed history books, one of which he read as a child, was about a soldier who lost his leg on the battlefield. Although he could no longer participate in battles himself, he became a hero thanks to his excellent leadership skills. There are many people like him. They cannot function normally, but they do not lose hope. The man suggested uniting all this in order to attract the attention of those who care. Thanks to the prince's idea, it was possible to gather artists and sculptors, writers, to create new stories since the response was good. Aristocrats inspired by this art began to invest money in it. If we try even more, people's attitudes will change. Before her rebirth, the girl tried to impose the right things on everyone and everything, or promote them by force, because she felt as if it was her direct responsibility, but now she realized that it was wrong. If the girl is so happy, it means that the brother is also happy. He hopes that at least now they can finally hug for him. This is the most important thing, no matter under what circumstances. Although the blonde did not persuade the emperor, but in the end he helped to cope with all the problems. The lady even wanted to compliment him, but childishness killed the whole atmosphere. It all ended almost immediately. The prince does not understand how much is left. He needs to prepare for education and support measures. Even though they have only completed 1/10 of the plan, the heroine is proud of herself. Dorothea extends her hand to shake and thanks him with all her heart for all the help and support provided. Milaner didn't wait for an invitation, so he pulled the woman closer and hugged her. He didn't care at all what other people thought because now he was very proud that his younger sister was Dorothy. What the young man says sounds more like the ravings of a fool, and perhaps she is right. He was born that way. But even if so, he still likes to say words. Praise is always one of the most important parts. Now the girl thinks that this was the very reason why Raymond did not kill the princess in his past life. He trusts the one he likes without thinking about other people's views. Maybe Meliner was the fool when she pierced the fragile heart with a blade. Ethan played the violin as soon as the performance was over. They began to applaud him without a doubt. In front of them was a true genius. The talent was successfully hidden, but now he will have to do what must be done. The Bronte family has another reason to be proud, another happiness the Duke accepts praise. Ethan is special, but the blonde feels much more guilty for the fact that he was able to see the blinding light of the world so late. Some began to ask why not send the young man to study at the academy if he gets there. His talent will be revealed even more, but not to the full extent. The eldest is already in epidemic. It remains to finish it this way. Last time the blonde had an accident, and as a result he didn't even get to the entrance exam, thereby automatically not taking points, but no one knows how his mistakes will turn out. Now people's expectations towards the young man are increasing every day. The guy has a high chance of getting in, and if he does, he will attract even more attention to his modest person. Since the situation is developing better, it would be nice to put some hopes on Ethan. Approaching his son, the Duke starts an awkward conversation. He asks if he has any desire to try his luck again. It is a pity when you see how abilities rot on the sidelines. Since Jonathan entered epidemic, you can join him. Last time it was impossible to forget what happened, but of course everything has changed, interrupting his father. The boy shakes his head. This time he is not going to do it again, or even try. He is quite happy with the way things are now too. Although the academy had previously seemed like an impossible dream which he wanted to reach out to like a star, now finding himself in the center of social life, the hero realized that he liked this kind of pastime more. While Jonathan is gnawing at the granite of science, his son should be next to his parents, who is always ready to help them in everything and organize their work. The blonde rubs his eyes as if brushing away tears as expected. Ethan is his main pride. The young man had made a plan, so of course he refused for a reason. Visiting various events, he became aware of some facts, such as the most important and exciting ones. The news that the princess did not enter epidemic has spread around, or rather rumors are circulating that her result was the lowest in the entire history of the academy. Some ignorant nobles say that Dorothea is stupid, but the fact that the girl answered all the questions wrong means that she knew every correct one too. Her Highness is a truly unusual person. This must be acknowledged, no matter how much one would like to deny it. The young man smiles, and when his father asks what is funny, he turns away for a moment. It seemed that there was something good. Something that the man really likes appeared in his thoughts. He himself did not notice how his facial expression changed. Happiness is that the boy liked someone he admits that he is different from the previous version of himself. First, he will have to start with the steps that the hero is now capable of, and at that moment when he will meet Her Majesty again, they will have a story. Ethan dreams of becoming a person who will be at least a little bit like Meliner. Now the blonde is trying his best, realizing that everything is only in his hands. All that remains is to wait, even not too long. Raymond ran straight to his sister with his report card. He took 49th place out of 50 possible, ending up in the top as he promised. According to the blonde, this doesn't mean anything anymore. Too much time has passed. Next to the girl sits the one who got first place and became the best. It's hard to believe that it's Theon. You can't compare geniuses and mere mortals for whom everything is much more difficult. The young man worked hard to achieve the result that he now has. The sister giggles and again uses sarcasm in her words. The two gradually begin to quarrel playfully. Fried watches her every move. It turns out that a lady can be like that every time they met. Her face conveyed all the discomfort. Now she has a lively and playful expression, and her beautiful smile is illuminated with light. Turning to Her Highness and attracting her attention, the young man asks how she feels about spending the new summer in the duchy. The road there is long, but it will be interesting. Everything inside her contracts. Her heart begins to beat faster. The realization that Theon is inviting her to his place breaks her head. The girl has never been to the Duchy of Phrygia. She has not visited the country. In those places it often rains. There is a thick fog. Hosu is a quiet city. In fact, we are talking about a place where even behind the tall trees, it is difficult to see it with the naked eye. The feud is famous for its gloom, and not only humidity prevails there, it is not the best choice for a holiday, but it will definitely be worth trying before returning to the past. The maiden took her husband with her and went to his hometown. She already knows everything. There was hope that Fried would feel better when he was back in his native land, but no matter how many times they pulled him out, he never opened his mouth to say even a basic thank you. However, as always, the efforts were in vain. The young man is brought out of the trance. He still has not finished his thought, even despite the gloominess. It would be nice if the heroine honored them with her visit. The blonde thought that she was completely giving up her feelings for her friend, but why in this life is he so kind and calm? The question remains if you continue in the same spirit. Melaner will simply want to be around again. It is advisable not to repeat this. When it comes to the princess, she can do absolutely everything in her head. There are those same frames from the past. Out of fear, the girl pulls her hand away. The little girl immediately apologizes for what happened, but Theon also responds in kind. He grabbed too suddenly to kiss. Since the girl was invited, she of course agrees to any options. Raymond promises that he will be there. It will not be possible to send only Dorothea in the future. It is impossible to give free rein to feelings. Everything will end badly. The woman watches what is happening on the other side of the table. She smiles, but inside her consciousness is crumbling again. She is scared in this life. She can't have anything in common. It will only bring problems. Perhaps Milliner still has regrets in her soul that she never really spent time with the brunette, which is why she wants to be close to him one last time. The carriage sets off. Ray groans because there is thick fog ahead. He acts as if he knows nothing, although the last test seems to have several questions about the duchy. They almost got there, turning her head to the left. The baby freezes with glowing eyes. Phrygia, in her memory, was not so wonderful. It was like a world very different from what it was in her past life. Of course, it is better not to get nervous and keep your head up until the very last moment. The lady gets off the carriage, trying not to say anything. Attention immediately switches to Her Highness. The Duke himself offers her his hand, hoping that he will still be accepted. Pointing forward as if indicating the vast lands, the young man welcomes the guests to the duchy. They will definitely like it here. The weather outside was wonderful, so the two of them arrive just in time. Sunny days are rare in Phrygia. The light always shines on the members of the Melaner family. Nothing new here. The Archduchess accepts thanks for the invitation. Now the lady wants to rest a little, but no such luck. She is grabbed by the hand and pulled somewhere. Sharply they go off to have fun. Although there is a serene atmosphere near the lake, the girl watches the same picture for an hour and gets bored. Ray caught the first fish, which turned out to be big, and that's what they'll have for dinner tonight. It's just been decided what. Julia showed up later with a suitcase for a snack. It couldn't be any other way where Theon is. Delavigne is nearby. Now the prince shows the entire catch to his girlfriend, and the hero eventually becomes a bit of an avid fisherman. The girl blurts out without thinking, saying that such activities are suitable for the prince because of the power of light, while things are worse for Fried. As expected, Julia knows a lot, both before and now in their relationship. There is not even a small gap for the girl to come between. Without even noticing it, the beauty makes the princess feel too insignificant, and catching herself thinking about it is even more painful than usual. The only thing that matters is Theon's happiness. He laughs and suggests going fishing again. This time, the hero also invites the blonde with him, perhaps. This time it is the last time that this happens. It is not a big deal if you are greedy for a while. Delavigne stopped Raymond. He needed to eat first and then join his friends. After half an hour, the fish started to bite, but it soon became clear that the cause was some old boot. Despite his poor skills, the hero often goes fishing. He loves this lake. It is peaceful and quiet there, and such a pastime calms his nerves. The girl had no idea about the guy's favorite things in that past. He was always silent so they can still spend time together. The moment was interrupted by some fish that started to bite. They didn't have enough strength to pull it out, and the two of them fell on top of each other on the grass. The two almost kissed, but everything changed when they saw a huge catch. The fish had to be caught from the shore. The long wait paid off as they eventually caught the biggest fish in the bucket. Usually when fishing, the one who does the best is proclaimed the hero of the day. The princess is amazing. My face turns red. I feel awkward hearing my ex-husband start praising me, and I have mixed feelings inside. Although the lips only touched lightly, it made her feel strange. It feels like my heart is going to jump out of my chest. It becomes hard to breathe. It's actually a shame because Theon looks like nothing happened. The brunette says that they told him that Milliner and his friend went mushroom picking, and until they return, they can fish a little more. The blonde decided to take a little rest. She calls Stefan to her, and they set off forward along the path. Dorothea feels like a fool, has come to sort out her feelings once and for all, and is once again indulging in hopes. Lying on the grass, the lady is frightened when Theon hangs over her. He wants to know why his friend agreed to come. It seemed that she would refuse. Getting up, the beauty immediately asks for forgiveness for not realizing that all this was a condition of politeness. The Duke invited because he wanted to see the woman, but there is an invisible wall between them. It is starting to crumble. Since the princess hides all her feelings and never says anything, there was no choice but to slowly try to get closer. The brunette had a feeling that the outstretched hand could only cause Milliner pain and trouble, but she deserved more. There is nothing special. Her Majesty is simply being special towards others. The person next to him does not know how much he hated his wife in his past life and how unhappy he was. The lady wishes Theon happiness. He doesn't necessarily have to love her. The main thing is to get the best out of life. The Virgin herself does not know whether she deserves to enjoy her life. She remembers how she ruined her husband's life. The memories make you cringe, those same eyes again, as if the words pierced your heart with a sharp blade. The Duke wished for happiness, but for some reason, an expression of incredible sadness appeared on his face, which made him feel even sadder. And that's how it all ended. Now the man is affectionate, but you shouldn't do this. He cannot break the firm determination to give up love. The beauty rummages in her pocket and holds out a jar of ointment. At first she wanted to throw it away, but thought that it was worth returning it. The princess also had a handkerchief. It was stained with blueberry juice, and even after washing, pale spots remained. Theon gave things away not because he had an obligation to return them, but simply so that they would be close to the princess. When the day has passed, so unforgettable now, the lady is ready to let go of her love of life. She no longer needs her things either. Having received what she didn't have in her past life, Milliner was more than happy. The guy takes back what was given. The blonde thanks her, but in fact there is more hidden meaning. The guy loved her infinitely and gave her the opportunity to put an end to it. Evening came. It seemed that parting with Theon should make one feel bitter, but it was not so at all. There was no need to wait until the last minute. It was not scary. A beautiful star lit up in the sky, and for some reason Ethan's thoughts suddenly came to mind. The last days of the trip have arrived. It flew by unnoticed, and I don't want to go back at home. The brother and sister will begin preparing for the next stage of the plan.